Senator Boner. Senator Case.
Present. He's here.
Present.
Senator Nethercott. Here. Senator Scott.
Here.
Representative Blackburn.
Here.
Representative Clausen.
Here.
Representative Duncan.
Here.
Representative Air.
Here.
Representative Greer. Representative McGuire. Representative Roscoe.
Here.
Representative Yin.
Here.
Co-Chairman Zwanitzer.
Here.
Chairman Driscoll.
Here.
Quorum present.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Good to see the committee back together again. Got just one item of business today. We've got three complete plans were submitted. Everybody followed the rules and we have 3 plans. We're going to let them go one at a time, just as they're laid out, present the plans. We'll take public input, go to the committee. I ask everybody to keep everything as brief as you can. We've argued virtually all of this. The last plan is probably the only one that's not been widely vetted. We'll take testimony on them, and then we will, one at a time, so the public knows, and for the committee, we will vote on each of the plans. I ask everybody that you only vote for the plan you want, not for a second choice, because as soon as the committee comes with a majority vote on a plan, we won't vote on any more. That will be the committee bill that goes forward to the next meeting. So as these look,
Next meeting.
can be amendments brought or some changes by the committee of a plan, but there will be no more complete plans or snap-ins or change arounds. So we potentially could have a change at the next meeting, but there'll be none at this one. We'll just vote on the plans. There'll be no what ifs. The public's going to be able to see what's out there. I want to thank everybody. This has been really frustrating. The truth is the frustration shows through the public, but we've come with about 20 iterations or more of plans now. And what we found out is there is no one plan that works. It doesn't matter what plan we do, it affects somebody. And we realize we're going to do that today. So for everybody out there, including our committee, for those that are happy, we're happy, and the others that aren't, they're not, but we've got to take a position and move and go forward. And so we're to that point. I think it's kind of a relief. I'm looking around the room and I think we're all ready to be there. So with that, I think we'll have Michael give us a quick rundown of what he sees. And I didn't talk to you. Are you prepared to do that? Just a quick rundown. And then we'll bring people up and present the plans, but just a real quick rundown of where we're at. And also a huge thanks to you and your staff. By the minute I've seen more of these colored maps. I thought they were just mine. There's hundreds of them out there different. And so we'll turn you loose.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm prepared to just give a summary of what has occurred since the last meeting. At the last meeting, the committee revised the original House plan to include what was called the I-80 compromise or I-80 corridor plan. And at that meeting, the committee requested feedback from Region 2, Albany County, and Region 1, Laramie County, to complete that map along the I-80 corridor. We did get 2 revisions, one from Albany County, one from Laramie County. Those are kind of snapped into the first map that's on our website, which is statewide compilation plan number 1, revised 3. And that's just kind of where that plan is at. It's now complete with all districts. It still does contain the basin out of deviation. And then the only other one I'll mention is that House District 46, as numbered in the map, is shared between Laramie and Albany County. Because each county revised separately, they each kind of tweaked a little bit of the area in their portion of that district. So in this map, that one too is out of deviation by about 150 people. But it's more or less, because they each kind of figured out which portion of their county they wanted to share, but didn't put them together. The second map is a map that was provided to the committee, or at least discussed at the December 14th meeting from Senator Scott. It was an option to do 60 House districts, 30 nested Senate districts under the same nesting pairings under current law. and it brought all districts within deviations. So everything within the basins is in deviation based on 3 movements of population, one from Natrona County, which is about 150 people, one from Fremont County, which extends into, I guess, what is called the Valley in Fremont County, and then taking the remainder of the Yellowstone National Park into House District 24. And then the final plan is a newer plan that was submitted this week. It's a 62 House District, 31 Senate District. It is contemplated to be nested. So there are 2 additional House districts, one in Laramie County and one roughly between Converse and Natrona County. So in terms of nesting, it would obviously alter nesting pairs as what is in current law, because it adds a new Senate seat. And on the current map that we have, it contemplates having 1 Senate seat nested between Natrona and Converse County and 1 nested between Platte and Laramie County. But all districts are within deviation in that plan.
Very good. Thank you. With that, I think Senator Boner, are you prepared, or I don't know who's going to present the I-80 compromise. Would you like to do that?
Well, just briefly, Mr. Chairman, I think Mr. Swank covered it. Had the, I believe, Laramie County Clerk, now the county clerk primarily, work on adjusting those lines, and intentionally did not involve myself in that process, and don't want to represent that somehow those need to be the final lines. I think they still need some work, but at least we got to the point where, you know, we have a complete plan that we can further refine along with the other revisions that are going to be necessary for our last meeting, regardless of what plan comes. So I defer to the folks who did the work from those 2 counties if they have anything to add, but I think that's fairly straightforward.
Do we have anybody out there that wants to? And we will have adjustments to all 3 of these maps, whatever ones chose. There will be adjustments. There just won't be major changes again. So that's, I want to make that clear that there will be. Mr. Swank.
Mr. Chairman, I believe Representative Conley is online and would like to speak.
Perfect. Representative Conley, can we let her in, please? Welcome, Representative Conley. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have been admitted as a panelist, but I can't seem to get my video to start. But that being the case, yes, thank you, Mr. Swank, for that summary. Just so that the committee knows that Senator Rothfuss and I met with Chairman Zwanitzer and Chairman Nethercott about a week and a half ago. We met for 5 hours. And one of the first things we took up was our obligation from the committee to kind of look at that I-80 plan and come up with a way to share with both Carbon and Laramie counties. We did so. Admittedly, I'm a little surprised at the Laramie County submission because we left that meeting with a fully compliant map. However, that map meant that Laramie County, west of I-25, needed to be kind of combined in part with Albany County. It is a map that all of us felt did not meet our needs at all. So while we were able to do it, we do not support it. And then, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee know that we spent the remaining time, probably 3 to 4 hours, really looking at a statewide alternative, and that being the 6231. And that was a plan after lots of discussion with many of you, we felt like we could support. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll leave it at that unless there are questions from the committee.
Committee questions for Representative Conley? No questions. Do we have anyone else in the waiting room on I-80? And anybody can hold to the end to comment on all 3, because we may have exactly what Representative Conley just did. You'll be allowed to comment on all 3 plans at the end if you'd like, as far as the public goes, because otherwise I think we have people repeatedly trying to do one position or another, and the justifications are fine by us at one time. With that, does anyone want to comment on this plan? Okay, With that, we'll move on. Senator Scott, are you prepared to lay out your plan? It's second in the package.
Yes.
You have the floor, and thank you very much for bringing a plan.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, and I've got a request from Michael Swank. Can he put up a map that shows either the House or the Senate version of the plan, probably the House version statewide? Okay. Mr. Chairman, what this plan is intended to be a backup in case something goes wrong with the committee bill. I have asked the LSO to put it in a bill that I intend to introduce. I've asked them to prepare that in final for introduction, asked that several weeks ago. What this plan basically does, it's a 30-60 plan. So 30 senators, 60 House members, our current size. It is fully in deviation. What it does is basically takes where the committee was in about mid-December. Michael, do you remember the precise as of date on that?
Mr. Chairman, I believe this plan was put in place or presented to the committee on December 14th.
Yeah, okay. So mid-December, this is where we were. It is based on the regions that we'd set up and the submissions that we'd gotten from those regions. I'm going to concentrate in a minute on one place where we do deviate from what the committee had. But it is intended, Mr. Chairman, as a backup. And I've done this before. And actually the reapportionment that was finally enacted and used in 1992 was it was a backup bill of mine that we turned out something did go wrong, and something that went wrong was the governor's veto, and we had to use it. And it was what got enacted after considerable change. So that's the purpose of this, is to have a backup in case something does go wrong. I'm not going to go into great detail as to what it does. It is fairly close to the low end of the deviation. The districts are at the minimum size in the Bighorn Basin and in the southwest corner. In Laramie County and Natrona County, they're fairly close to the high end of the deviation, and the others are a bit all over the map. It does seek to preserve the majority-minority district in Fremont County to comply with the Federal Voting Rights Act. Does that the way they did it. That's a very quick summary of what it does. The difference between the committee plans at that time and this plan is getting the basin districts, Bighorn Basin districts, entirely within deviation. The instructions I gave Mr. Swank, and frankly, I would like to publicly compliment Mr. Swank on the work that he did in all these plans. I think he's been just excellent. I don't know whether he's going to keep his sanity after all this back and forth, but I really appreciate the work he did. It was very high quality work. But the instructions were to first include the balance of Yellowstone National Park in the basin districts. I And I think that amounted to was just under 80 people. Somehow the computer muted me, so I'll repeat that last comment. That the first item of instruction was to include that portion of Yellowstone National Park. It's just under 80 people, I think, in the Bighorn Basin District. Second, to expand where we go into Fremont County already for basin districts, to expand that to what they call the valley, to the extent that was possible without disrupting I believe it's House District 33, that is the district that includes primarily the Wind River Reservation and the population there. Didn't want to touch that. And of course, you have to leave the neighboring district, so it's contiguous. And then to take, it was 2 precincts, about 150 people out of my district in Natrona County, which I don't like it at all. But if you have to do it, you have to do it to get within deviation. Fourth was to go up to Sheridan County, come over the hill there and find about 200, 250 people. And then fifth, if you had to stretch the rest of the distance across Natrona County, picking up Midwest and Edgerton. We didn't have to do those last 2 items. We did have to take the, it's looks like a tremendous area, but it's 2 precincts in what, a little over 150 people out of Natrona County to make, so we didn't take too much out of Fremont County. And that was enough so the Bighorn Basin districts then can be districted within deviation. And that did mean making some very minor adjustments in several of the Bighorn Basin districts. We tried as much as possible to follow the proposal that was submitted by the group up there in the Bighorn Basin. And I think we've got the changes we made really very minor. That's the big difference between it and the committee plans. What I would emphasize, I'm not at this point seeking to substitute this for the committee bill necessarily. I'm trying to have a backup, and it's a backup that the committee had worked on. And the advantage to doing it that way is if we had to use it, it's done along the same lines as the committee's been working on. And people could, if we had to use it in various regions of the state, could put in alternate plans that have been vetted. Using it during session, we could make minor adjustments if we found some minor errors. That's always possible, but it's my judgment that you could not during session basically start from scratch and redo the whole thing. It's just too complicated for that. And I would strongly oppose anybody that tried that. It really, as we're learning, it is very, very complicated and very difficult to, if there's haste, to avoid minor errors. And so that's the essence of the plan. It is there. So we have a backup that will be introduced, because it doesn't take the 2/3 given the Constitution.
I started to drive to Cheyenne, but turned around.
There was a question I didn't hear. That's the essence of it, Mr. Chairman. It's intended as a backup plan and will be introduced as such.
Thank you, Senator Scott. Any questions for Senator Scott?
Mr. Chairman,
Representative Greer.
thank you. Senator Scott, this is Mike Greer. I just want to make sure, and I will visit with you one-on-one, just concerning the Bighorn Basin. And I think what I'm hearing, as long as we stay within the boundaries and the numbers and the precincts that are identified to be associated with the districts in the basin, probably be fine. You know, Mr. Chairman and committee, I've resisted the temptation to parade commissioners and mayors and constituents through this committee. You know, I've got small communities within the basin, small communities that have boundaries going right down through the middle of the street, or going in and picking out a neighborhood in a community of 1,500 people. You know, I resisted that. So I hope you all appreciate that. I also am committed to us finding a plan for the state of Wyoming. So I'm just asking Senator Scott if I can go back and work with Hans and our other legislators and our clerks and commissioners. He'll be open to me bringing some changes for the backup, but having them ready within those boundaries.
Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, I'm quite open to that if we ever have to use this, and it would be perhaps wise to have that figured out ahead of time so that it is ready if we have to use it. At this point, I have asked the LSO to put it in final for introduction. And I don't think the process is really amenable to changes at that point. And I don't think it is needed. This really is intended to give us a backup vehicle. But having said that, if we have to use it, it would be wise to have any changes that you want ready to go, and then we could snap them right in. And frankly, Mr. Chairman, I don't like the piece of it that comes into my county. But yeah, I thought it was necessary to put this in deviation. I think that if we go out of deviation, the evolution of this thing is such, we're probably going to get sued no matter what we do. And legally, the advantage of having the presumption of complying with one land, one vote that being in deviation gives you is worth an awful lot. So that's a bit of a roundabout answer, but my fundamental answer to Representative Greer is that if we have to use that, yes, I am very open to any changes, because what you got here, you heard the instructions that I gave to Mr. Swank in developing it. I followed them quite effectively. And beyond that, you've got we tried to stick as close to what y'all in the basin had submitted, but to get it all within deviation, we did have to make some minor adjustments. And it's entirely possible we got something wrong, and the local people would know how to do it better, and we would be very open to that. But, you know, I hope we're not going to have to use it. I'm a little afraid we might, but I hope we don't.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I don't care to debate the deviation argument any further, but and two is that, you know, if I were to continue to serve in that district, Detroit County would be better off. They'd be very pleased, I can guarantee you. Three is that, yeah, I just want to make sure that, you know, as I've taught my wife and daughters, it doesn't do any good to pull your gun if you don't have one in the chamber. So I'd like to go ahead and have the amendment ready, but I also don't want to burden LSO staff. So that's all I'm looking for is how do I make sure that we go back, work on this next week with this as a possibility of coming forward, that we have the amendment ready, because as I see us going forward, whatever plan this committee kicks out, somebody's going to be ticked off. There's no doubt about it. Somebody's ox is gored. what we have to do is limit that down to one or two fights on the respective floors. If we start having 4 or 5 fights and amendments coming in, it's going to be, one, we're not going to have staff to be able to keep up doing that on the fly. And two, is the legislators aren't going to be able to follow it, and the public's not going to be able to follow it. And we're not going to know what comes out the other end. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for your
Chairman.
comments. Further comments, Senator Scott?
Mr.
Further
Chairman,
question?
and I think Representative Greer just hit the nail solidly on the head. We try to do too much at this point. We will overwhelm our staff and confuse the legislators and the public and wind up with something I think in the long run we'd rather not have done. Having said that, I think having an amendment ready in case we do need to use the backup plan is a good idea. And the real work on that's deciding what to do. Mr. Chairman, I would ask Mr. Swank, is it possible for him to communicate to Representative Greer the changes that he had to make from the initial submission that we were working off for the Bighorn Basin? Because I know he had to change some of those other districts slightly to get them in deviation, and being able for Representative Greer and his people in the basin to know where those changes were, I think would inform any work they would want to do to adjust them a little differently.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Scott, that is correct. I can provide the geographic data to the basin districts. I will note that once those other 3 areas were added to the basin, the changes are primarily around Graybull, Powell, and Cody.
Okay, I think that would be helpful to Representative Greer if you could forward that.
Representative Greer.
Yeah, and I guess Hans and I will work to make sure this, but we had several legislators, Representative Larson, Representative Newsom in particular, who were right on the edge of their districts in that. So that'd be the first thing I'd look at is I don't want to inadvertently, and I'm sure Zach not going to do it intentionally, to bring somebody out of their district.
I think we can do that. I've got a question for you, Senator Scott, and shape it any way you wish. It appears that you intend for this not to be one of the 3 plans, but as a backup plan. I always feel like committee bills pack more power than individual bills. Would you object if, and I'm going to ask the committee the same when I'm done with you, that we go ahead and call this the substitute plan, or if you want it the Scott substitute plan, I don't care, but I think it should be a committee bill. If it's going to come as a substitute, we go ahead and vote it out of committee as such, and it would just stay in the drawer until it was necessary to come out, but it'd get introduced and proceed that way. Does that fit with where you're at, Senator Scott? Because this is your plan.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I wouldn't have any objection if you did that, but I have asked and will continue to ask the LSO to introduce it, just to make sure that it does in fact get introduced. So yeah, if the committee wants to put it out also, that's fine.
I think if we're going to, we should at least vote and endorse it if we're going to. I have no objection to doing so, and I'll visit with the committee when we're done. We'll go ahead and take some comment. Committee, do you have comments on that?
Mr. Chairman, I would support that effort of turning this into a committee-sponsored alternative plan. I think it has a great deal of merit, and I do believe it could serve as a great solution for the legislature. And in the event conflict arises, I think that there's a lot here of merit. So I think that that's a great plan, and I would vote aye when the time is right.
Representative Clausen.
Mr. Chairman, just for discussion's sake, if we're going to have a backup plan and we go a 62 or 60, I hate to complicate this even more, but should one of those be our backup plan as well when we look at this? I mean, just for conversation's sake, I'm not endorsing one way or the other, but those have both been vetted too.
So I'll comment a tiny bit and then I'll go to Representative Yen. I think the big difference is his plan's compliant all the way across lawsuit wise. And if we use the I-80 as the substitute, if it happens not to come, it's not in compliance. And that's been, Senator Scott can correct me if he's wrong, but that's the whole point of this plan is should we get challenged, anything happen, we actually have a plan that's compliant. So that's just my comment on it. Representative Yin.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So, I guess I'm a little confused. What would this timeline look like where we pass the bill and then something happens? So I guess I'm just unsure why we need a second committee bill rather than just focus on a single committee bill that we can all get behind. Because if we have a second bill, then I think that will introduce confusion on the floor on why we would be introducing one over the other instead of just having one.
Representative Yin, and I'll answer that. It won't come out of the drawer. So no one's even going to look at it basically unless the bill that the committee picks as a primary fails on the floor. At that point in time, when that bill failed, it would hit the board. This second bill would hit the board immediately because you failed in your effort at that point.
So, Mr. Chairman, why wouldn't someone just bring Senator Scott's plan as an amendment to the committee bill? I don't understand why the bill would fail rather than someone bringing an amendment to the committee bill, and then the House can vote on whether it wants that amendment as a whole map to the bill, and then that the House can decide whether it would want that, or the Senate or whatever chamber that the committee bill is in.
I understand your logic.
Mr. Chairman.
I think Senator Scott may want to comment. He's lived through this and he knew exactly how it happened before. And so for my end, I'll go with the pleasure of the committee. I'm not going to influence either way. But I will be an aye vote to have a backup plan sitting there.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, the reason you have a backup bill is there's several things that can go wrong with the principal bill that cause you to use the backup. In the 1992 example, what went wrong was the governor vetoed the primary bill, so it was no longer available to us. We did not have the votes to override the veto. And we were up against, in that case, a court deadline as well. And having the backup plan introduced in committee, as my memory is, the governor vetoed it at 11 a.m. on a Monday morning. And we blew the bill out of committee at the start of the afternoon session. And it was on general file in the Senate at 2 o'clock that same afternoon. So having it introduced and sitting there gives you a leg up because we're going to be under time pressure. The other thing that can go wrong with a primary bill is that that you really can't retrieve is it gets defeated in a committee of the whole. And both of those things are possible. And the last thing we want is to not have a legislative plan. I think it's a mistake to ask a court that's basically unfamiliar with what goes on, and it would be, in all probability, as I understand the process, a 3-judge panel out of not our district court, but out of the 10th Circuit. We're much better off with our own Wyoming drawn plan. So there's some real value to back up. And frankly, I rather like Senator Driscoll's idea that we make it a backup as a committee bill. And I think that's a good way to proceed.
Representative Yin.
Mr. Chairman, so then to Senator Scott's intent, is that the intent that if we have a backup plan, he would also introduce a third personal bill as well? Or would the senator not do that?
Mr. Chairman, I'm far enough along, I probably would, but I don't think it'd make any real difference. just gives you an extra backup.
Committee, further comments? We'll move on then to the, are you finished, Senator Scott? Can't see you. so-
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate the hard work and the thought and the expertise. With that, we're down to the last plan, which is the 3162. Senator Nethercott, are you presenting? I'm not sure who's presenting.
You know, if I can, just have Mr. Swank potentially highlight some of the key distinction. And then I can certainly follow up with some comments, but I just think that probably makes some sense if Mr. Swank, you're so inclined.
Good with that, Mr. Swank? We'll let you.
Mr. Chairman, I've placed the 62 House District map on the screen. Back out. This generally follows the 60 district house plan, other than around Natrona, Converse County and Laramie County areas, because there's 2 extra house districts. Based on adding 2 extra house districts, the average district size goes down and the deviation goes down. The number of population per district deviation goes down. Under that circumstance, both Laramie County and Natrona County would be the next 2 counties to qualify for an extra district. That said, if you look at full nesting of house districts, there would need to be some sort of balance between those 2 additional districts. And the instruction I was provided was to have a Senate district, which would be between Natrona and Converse County. You see my cursor over here, where it would basically be one house district would be would favor Natrona County, but the Senate district would favor Converse County. And then in the southeast, there would be an extra house district, and then there would be a shared or paired house districts between Platte, Southern Goshen, and Laramie County, where it would be roughly even between Laramie County and the other 2 counties in the Senate district. That's kind of the general differences for this. I did have, I was instructed to provide this to a few county clerks that would have a slight difference in their population. So Region 5, Sheridan and Johnson, due to the decreased population per district, that particular region would need to give up roughly 300 to 400 people or population. And then in Fremont County, which is almost the exact same size as Region 5, would need to give up roughly 150 to 200 to have their 4 main districts become in compliance with the deviation. So those 2 regions did provide me with some feedback on revising the district lines from the original map that was provided to me. And then I did get some feedback from a couple other counties, but they chose not to provide any revisions at this time.
Questions for Mr. Swank? Follow-up, Senator Nethercott of any kind?
Committee members, I think this plan, we have seen before previously in the interim with the discussion of these additional legislators. My initial reaction to that was no, that I didn't think it was prudent for us to add more. And then during this process, it became apparent that the gridlock was profound, primarily as a result of the changing populations within our state. And I think the fear of loss for much of rural Wyoming and its relationship to the growing counties, which ironically is Lincoln County and Laramie County. And so this solution of the 6231 plan, I think addresses this kind of gap period that we're in Wyoming, where as the rural counties experience this decline and kind of readjust and go through that fear of loss or fear of representation, and the growth of the other counties to recognize that growth without disadvantaging either side, and to provide this solution. Historically, the legislature has had even more legislators and have had this amount. And so this is not a new concept for us to consider or particularly profound in that way. The purpose is really to identify the greatest amount of concerns that we heard and provide those solutions, really maximizing solutions to the concerns. And this plan seems to do that. It's not perfect, but it does address the majority of those concerns, and that is the spirit in which it was presented and is being presented today.
Questions for Senator Nethercott? Representative Greer.
So one with, with this plan, it actually even gives us a little freedom in the basin to adjust some sensitive boundaries around some communities. So I appreciate that. I just can't ever win. I'm from Claremont. It's where my parents live. It's where all my friends from childhood are. And so Mr. Swank is the district that would go to basically Campbell County was that readjusted to be just what's Sheridan County School District 3 and does not take in that area from you cross on Highway 14 north over Jim Creek Hill into Sheridan. Can you zoom in? I probably can tell.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Greer, you are correct. This just follows the line for school district number 3, and that was the request of Sheridan County.
Yes, Mr. Chair, interestingly enough, I went over and stopped off in Buffalo, watched the junior high basketball game, and then went to Claremont to play pinochle. And I actually got hit up by 5 people over this from that area, and never even had anybody in the basin say a word to me about it. So I just can't ever win. But like you said, no one's going to be happy with it. I think this having just being what would be the boundaries of Sheridan County School District 3 is a little better than taking that Piney Creek and Jim Creek area. So anyway, just got to stand up for little guys. Sorry.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you, Mr. Swank.
if I may, I just wanted to confirm that for the basin, because the district size goes down, the basin does go into deviation with no changes from the current submission.
I was going to point that out. This map isn't missing. Representative Claus.
Mr. Chairman, so on one hand, the new seat falls into a split Converse district, but my concerns, and I'll give you the overall concerns to start with, and then the details. But my overall concerns is we just solved one problem and created 4 more we haven't vetted with a 62 plan. Now looking at, I understand things have to move, but every time we do anything, it ripples. In this particular concept, there's probably 6 or 8 more problems that we created that we didn't realize we created at the time. The concern I have with the new split district, and it is right in the middle of my district. Number one, I don't know exactly where that line goes. I looked for it. That's my district right now, and I cannot tell someone this is where this goes. Number two, the population that this takes out into this new district, it would make a minority district for basically the Glen Rock area. And I know this isn't one of our core concepts, but right there is kind of the tip of the spear for issues in the state of Wyoming. So you have Dave Johnson Power Plant, you have the stuff going around with the carbon capture and the Glen Rock Energy stuff that we've heard of. Then there's a big conversation of safety if they go to a natrium power plant. The largest uranium mine in the lower 48's right there, and major wind production in the state. So it's an economic powerhouse, really, right in that particular spot. And to make them a minority district to an urban area without having any, I guess, public interaction, all the other plans have left them in a Converse district. I can't support this specifically without having a conversation with that particular part of the world in my current district and saying, is this something you can live with? Because the stakes for those guys are really high when it comes to representation. And I wish they had a better representative than me. And then maybe this will allow that. But at the end of the day, I can't endorse it without getting community buy-in. And right there's a touchy part of the world, I guess you'd say.
Representative Duncan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My issue with this is we all of a sudden split my county into three. But the bigger issue is if we only split my county into two and we went back to, despite our heartburn and headache over being with Eastern Laramie, the difference would be, though, is that Goshen would be 1/3 of that population, voter population, versus the group that is now in Platte, they're only 1/8. And they wouldn't have much of any sort of a say-so or voice at all, that group. So literally, they're disenfranchised completely. Out in the middle of nowhere with no voice. So despite my county's loud voice about not wanting to be paired with Laramie County, I would have to say, with this map, the way it's drawn, in all fairness to those people in the southern half of Goshen, we would have to have either all Platte or all Laramie County, because it's just not fair to those 730 people to be pretty much isolated out there. So to be divided in two like that. When we were divided into to the top, I mean, when the top part was going to Niobrara, that worked because they were paired with Niobrara, because they were only 40 miles from Lusk and such, and it paired and it worked. But this area going towards Platte, there is no common interest. There is no, I mean, they're isolated completely. So if we were to move forward on this, just to the detriment of my people screaming at me, we would have to redraw this just to be in two. And whichever county, and if it had to go to Laramie, we would have to adjust and do that. But we can't do three. We just can't isolate those people that way.
Senator Boner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Don't have much to add for my two colleagues who spoke previously. The one thing that I will bring up now is that if when the time comes to work this plan, I think it's appropriate that we have an appropriation associated with it to compensate for the additional 3 legislators and potentially 1 or 2 additional FTEs for LSO. So I think that's going to be just prepare the committee for that. I think that's a prudent choice. We're going to expand the number of legislators. We're also going to need to have an additional appropriation to cover it.
It's a good point. That was one of the questions I was going to ask is we don't know the cost. I've been asked yet. We'll probably, if this plan goes forward, we'll get a footnote prepared to what the costs are. But I think it's a great catch on LSO because I do think it's going to require some additional for them as well. Committee.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Nethercott.
I think it's reasonable to conclude that the addition of 3 legislators probably results in an additional appropriation of approximately $200,000 a year. I would push back on the need for 2 additional LSO staff, although I think they need that now. But I think it is not reasonable to conclude that 3 legislators require their 2 individual staff members of LSO. That's not how it operates. And so that's not a reasonable conclusion, but we can certainly look at that fiscal note. But I think that that's reasonable to understand that growth. So
Mr. Chairman.
I think now we know.
Representative Greer.
Yeah, I think I have the dubious honor of being the longest serving member on management council. And I think I can tell us that we've never came close to spending our budgeted amounts because we haven't been able to fully staff the LSO office in the current market. This one's been going on for several years. I also know it's been an awkward year this year, but I also know that most committees end up reverting part of their budget and not utilizing it because everyone's responsible with how they go about managing their committees and conserving funds. I think using cost doesn't hold a lot of weight with me. We're at a point in time where, in my opinion, Wyoming our Wyoming way of life and our values is under attack. And the better and stronger representation, the more effective representation that we can get out of our legislature for the citizens of our state is a good thing. Those are my thoughts on that subject.
For the comments, committee.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, and I gather now is the appropriate time for general comments on the plan. Mr. Chairman, my thoughts, I do see one major advantage to this plan, and that is that it, as I understand it, it does enable us to district the basin within limits. I'm a little confused. Do we still leave Shoshone Lost Cabin with the basin, or Shoshone and Lysite rather with the basin, or do those precincts revert to being part of Fremont County districts? I'm unclear on that.
Mr. Swank.
Mr. Chairman, the basin stays within deviation if it continues to have those two precincts. The other side of this is that Fremont still needs, under this plan, would need to shed population. So it balances both ways.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I will echo a number of the comments that have already been made on the disadvantages of this plan. And I do point out in Natrona County, as I understand the plan, and I will say my understanding of this plan is a good deal less than perfect, but as I understand the plan, the Midwest Edgerton area is districted into a new representative vacant district that is a mixture of Natrona County and Converse County, and in the Senate would go into a district that Senator Boner currently represents. And that particular area has some special problems right now. They get their water from the North Platte River because of the quality of the water that's available locally. They've always gotten it from the North Platte River. And part of that pipeline is getting to be more leak than pipeline and needs to be replaced. They've got some special needs that probably coming the Water Development Commission for, I would think, at least in part. And having representation that is, I don't know how many miles it is from Midwest to Douglas, but it's quite a few. They're going to have some problem there. So that's a difficulty I see with it. I don't like what it does up in the Sheridan Johnson area and putting Claremont in with Campbell County. And I don't like what it does mixing Goshen Platte and Laramie County. Those seem to be very different kinds of communities. Having said all that, I see several major complications with the thing. Frankly, I think the 30-60 size has worked for us better. I was in the House when there were 62 House members. We did make it work, but it does make it more difficult. I can tell you that. I can remember that. The other problem I have is bringing one this complicated at this late a date, where I suspect I'm not the only one that doesn't fully understand what it does. That's a problem. And I'm afraid, as complicated as these plans are, one brought at this last minute and in this kind of haste is going to have some mistakes we haven't found in it. that may well come back to haunt us. And that is sufficient to make me vote against the plan in and of itself. I think if we'd have seen something like this and it had been pursued in October, we wouldn't have had that problem. But doing it now, 2.5 weeks before the session, I think that's a real drawback. It makes me very reluctant to support this particular plan. And then I have some reservations with what I'm told it is doing to the districts of individual members within Laramie County and within Campbell County and maybe some other places. I have reservations about that whole part of the plan. So, Mr. Chairman, for those reasons, I'm a no vote the plan.
Representative Ayer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Scott, you mentioned that 62 representative district or how 62 members in the House will create more challenges than a 60-member House. Would you explain why that occurred? I can't see that that would be a big challenge, but you indicated that it was.
Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, the more members you get, basically, the more unwieldy it becomes. Also, and I don't know, we've changed the desk size since then. It was a squeeze to get them all in and safely arrange all the desks. We got it done. But it was a squeeze and it was a little uncomfortable. Having said that, we made it work. I've just been impressed that the current 60-30 has worked well for us. And my thought was that it worked better than the 62 did when I was in the House.
Thank you. Follow up? Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Joe McGuire from House District 35. Just a couple of quick comments. I'd like to make sure that everybody understands that there's an asterisk with this particular plan insofar as many of our clerks have not had a chance to weigh in on it. So at least with Natrona County, our clerk did a fantastic job of putting forth a draft plan. It has not been submitted as a, yes, this is what it would look like. I do have it in paper if anybody would like to look at it, but she did an excellent job. And just want to make sure that we move forward knowing that if this is adopted, we need to have some time set forward for our people, boots on the ground, to actually work through this and give us an intelligent proposal. Because as it is with the draft, it actually, changes some lines and unseats some people, which is inadvertent. She's fixed all that, so we can move forward and it can be good, at least Natrona County. That's what I've looked at. I'd also just like to ask everybody to think about, so with regard to the whole urban versus rural and this and that, quite frankly, for me, I'd much rather be associated with a strong representative, whether it be a member of the House or the Senate. You'll get a lot more if you have a strong person that you're associated with than a weak representative. And so even if you're 700 people in a county, well, if those 700 people are associated maybe with the most senior member of the Senate, they're going to get a lot better representation than if they are associated with a freshman. That's just the fact of life. So I think that all of that needs to be tempered a little bit when you look at it. Also, the urban versus rural, I've kind of kept my mouth closed on that. But, when I was growing up and my parents were ranching full time, we had a house in town because with 5 kids, we walked to school in the morning, we took care of ourselves. We, walked back home, we went to our jobs. But does that mean that I wasn't urban? what's urban versus rural? I'm sitting right next to some people who are as urban as they could possibly be, yet technically they live in town. So I think here in Wyoming, we have to be a little bit cautious of this whole, that person doesn't understand this or that or whatever. And then my parents pivoted and moved into the energy sector. So I grew up working in the energy sector. So does that mean I don't understand urban anymore? I don't know. But I just think that we should be a little bit easy when we work on that. I think that the people, at least the representatives in the Wyoming legislature, a citizen legislature, I think that they are all so conscientious and they do a very good job. And we all have very diverse backgrounds. And I think that the citizens of the state of Wyoming get the best product that we can possibly give them. So I would just urge that we, consider all the amount of work that people put in and the experience that they bring. And I think that our people are getting a very good product. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative McGuire. Representative Clausen.
Mr. Chairman, I had no intention of sparking a rural versus urban debate, but my point my point more pointed would be that I haven't had a conversation with that part of the community to even begin this conversation, because every other plan, they were basically left the same. So I mean, that's at the end of the day, I don't know where the rub is. They may love the idea of getting rid of me and getting somebody else, but at the end of the day, I haven't had that conversation, so I can't endorse or that's the more pointed point. Not that, and Natrona County and Commerce County have always worked well together as far as the populations go back and forth. A lot of people that live in Natrona County work in Commerce County in the oil fields, and it's back and forth. But at the end of the day, I can't endorse it because I haven't had that conversation with that community.
Senator Scott. Senator Scott, you can go ahead and unmute. You have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, one general comment and then one very specific question. General comment is that I don't think the real question is urban rural. The real question is being represented from somebody from outside your community. And our counties really do represent our good representations of communities. And I find, and I suspect it's true of the rest of you, that I get more input from my constituents because I run into them in the grocery store, the auto parts store, the feed store, church, various social functions in the community. I just run into them. And if I represent, and I did have that experience once, a group that is from outside the county, I just don't have that contact with those people. And that's what degrades the quality of the representation. There just isn't the contact when you're a fragment of a community that's put with another community that dominates the district. The specific question I had is that I understood that whereas our county clerk did a amazing job in rapidly drawing some districts, that she didn't have enough confidence in it to actually submit that to be a formal part of this plan. And in part, that's because of the haste with which it had to be done. Is that correct? That it wasn't actually submitted as to be a part of this plan by the county clerk?
Senator Scott, Mr. Swank can answer that, and then I'll follow up on that a little bit.
Mr. Chairman, the plan was provided to several counties, but I believe Natrona County was one of them. However, under their direction, they chose not to submit one prior to this meeting.
Okay.
And I'll follow up on that, Senator Scott, as well. As the intent of this plan should it be passed or another plan, is there still will be revisions within areas. We're just not going to accept any more major snap-in amendments or new plans. So these plans are not set in stone that we passed today, any of them. If it's a I-80 plan or this last plan, there will be changes to them within the areas. They'll be able to do some adjusting, i.e. I know that I've visited with Speaker Barlow. They want to do some changes, Campbell County. We may very well have some other changes, particularly in these areas that have multiple representatives in them, that they'll redraw lines to do it exactly what Representative Greer talked about. And the committee does not intend to say, this is hardcore the deal. It is, we are now accepting a plan. We're not going to take any more changes beyond here that are major changes. There's still going to be revisions. We're going to let clerks work. We're going to let representatives and senators work to refine them, to come up with what is the most palatable plan on the floor. Because I extol to this committee, whatever plan we choose, this committee needs to strongly support going forward, full well knowing that you don't like all parts of it. We found out it doesn't matter. Through 30 or 40 plans, there's somebody that's split three ways, somebody that's moved, somebody that doesn't like it. Community's interests fall apart. That's going to happen. And that, I don't care which plan we have, we're still going to have unhappy people. So we know that going forward. So further comments, committee, before we reach out. Okay. Representative Henderson, are you online and would you like to comment?
Yes, hold on. Okay.
Welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Appreciate it. Well, you know, I'm sitting here listening to this and with all due respect, Senator Scott and Representative Greer, Speaker Pro Tem, the good Speaker Pro Tem, are reading my mind. You can bet your paycheck there's going to be proposals to change this. I want to associate myself, having talked with a lot of folks on this important topic, I want to associate myself with those who are trying to work for solutions that are best for Wyoming. And I don't want to be associated with a plan that's likely to end up or take us to court. And aside from that, I'm going to hold the rest of my thoughts pending further public comment and discussion by the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Representative Henderson? We're going to kind of going through the legislators first on this. We have Representative Washit on as well, I believe. Are you online? And
I am, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
welcome.
At the start of the summer committee, House District 36 had room to grow by 653 people. And we knew that that district would grow to accommodate some of the growth that had taken place here in Natrona County. And now at this late date, we come up with a plan where House District 36 is going to shrink significantly by the removal of the town of Evansville from House District 36, where it has resided for as long as I can possibly locate data to show. And we create a new district that transcends Natrona County and it goes into Converse County. And I just echo the concerns of both Senator Scott and Representative Clausen about where we are with this plan. You know, the new representative in this new district that's proposed here is going to be representing people from two counties, going to interact with two sets of county commissioners, be in two different school districts. While we talked about school district 3 up in the northern part of the state being carved out, you know, the boundary lines being used as to distinguish the district. Here we're going to, you know, put a representative to have two different school districts, two different community college districts. And I just don't see where, that adds to the quality of representation. I know it exists in other places as well around the state, but I just urge the committee to resist this proposal. I have not had, like Representative Clausen, have not had an opportunity to talk to the people of the town of Evansville, and maybe they'd be glad to be, joined in with Converse County, but I suspect that's not the case. And I just urge caution with this idea of expanding the size of the legislature, putting in this extra district at this late time. Had this proposal come forward in October, as Senator Scott said, maybe we could have vetted it and had stakeholders participate a little more and come up with a plan. But instead, we had a view of what Natrona County representation was going to look like throughout the summer or throughout the fall as we were watching this develop. And then at this time to come in with this additional representative plan, I just have great concerns, and I think that we should resist it. I urge a no vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for Representative Washit? Representative Fortner, are you on? Okay.
Yep, give me a second. I'm bringing it in.
Okay, you've been let in, Representative Fortner. Can you hear us?
Might be on a slow connection.
Okay, let's go ahead. If Mr. Fortner catches this, Representative Fortner, let's go to Senator McEwen. If he's there, let's Fortner's in now.
Yep.
Okay. Representative Fortner, can you hear us and ready to go? Okay, we've let Senator McEwen in. We'll go ahead and go with him, and Mr. Fortner or Representative Fortner, when you get where you can come, you can go ahead and talk. You've been admitted, so, but we'll go to Senator McEwen. Either one of you, if you can hear us, go ahead and talk. We'll take. I think we'll skip over and go to some other testimony. We'll, as soon as they can come, we'll leave them in the room. Either one of them can do it. I'll text. I don't think I have Representative Fortner's number, but I'll text. He's on.
Senator Driscoll.
Welcome.
I think we're both in.
Okay, welcome.
I'll let Senator McEwen go first and then I'll go second.
We don't have him on yet. I don't believe it. They've let him in, but.
Okay, well, that's fine. Senator Driscoll, I've been looking at House District 43's map and I see a little tail. It's almost like a stinger of a score pin that goes up there and sort of dead ends. Can you tell me why that is? Is there somebody that lives in that little point up there? Why is that map got that little bitty finger that runs up there and then just dead ends? It goes up into House District 10. And I want to know why that is. Can you tell me?
I can't. Potentially someone down in this neck of the woods might, or possibly Mr. Swank, because yeah, we can pull the map up. Okay, we've got it up now. I don't have answers, Representative Fortner. These maps have been drawn regionally and I can't answer. Either Mr. Swank or potentially someone down here, Senator Nethercott.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Representative Fortner, very good question. I wonder why you're asking it. Representative Fortner, I think if you look at the current map of House District 43 or House District 9, you can find two little stingers coming off of those districts from the current map. Also, if you look at House District 8, there's a curious little outlier of a square there as well. Those are current House districts prepared 10 years ago.
These aren't little stingers that's put on for this session 2022 for representatives moving out of the district and then not being district in where they're living at right now. Is that what you're telling me? This has happened 10 years prior.
Mr. Chairman, sorry.
Address the chair, everybody, please. Go ahead, Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Fortner, you can make whatever conclusions you choose to make. The answer I just provided you is there. There's a variety of quote unquote stingers throughout the House district maps throughout the state of Wyoming. You can make whatever conclusions you need to make about those, but the truth remains that those House districts look very similar today as they do in the current map. And that's it.
Thank you very much.
Co-Chairman Zwanitzer.
Thanks. I think the answer to the question, just so you know, that the line in why it looks jagged is the 82007 zip code of Cheyenne. And so if you look at the zip code map, everything near Carpenter is in one zip code. Everything above there is in the Burns zip code. So the residents in that, I guess, kind of purplish area on the map, that is the zip code line of the residents of Cheyenne. And so it was originally proposed, actually some people are here today in the room from the south side about drawing some southern districts of Laramie County within the 82001 and 82007 zip codes. That at the time corresponded with some conversations with Goshen County about if they did have to share a district with Laramie County. They did not want any portion of the city of Cheyenne. They wanted a rural district. And so the zip code line, and I believe I understand why the representative is asking, but historically since day one, that has kind of been the dividing line between Carpenter, Burns, Hillsdale, and the city of Cheyenne based on which city zip code the residents of those districts live in. I believe he got the numbers wrong. House District 43 would be the yellow district in Sun Valley. But that would be my explanation. And that's what we've had really since day one on this committee. It was brought to us from two different people, neither of which being myself, if there's some kind of interesting accusation there.
So
Representative Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I think we're at a point right now in this committee and with the legislature that we need to find fixes, not problems. I'd sure like to see us move on and try to fix these maps so that we can have something to present the whole legislature on February the 14th.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Fortner, do you object to Laramie County choosing to divide its districts by its zip codes? I think Laramie County has about 8 zip codes.
Representative Fortner.
yeah, I sort of do. I sort of object to that.
Great. Love to learn more about that later.
Okay.
Thank you. Any follow-up, Representative Fortner?
No, sir, I think he answered my questions.
Thank you. Do we have Senator McEwen online? I believe he's the last of the legislators.
Morning, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning. You have the floor.
I'm going to hold comment till we get to a different region. I just don't have much to say about this one right now. Thank you.
Before you leave, we're at the final comment. So if you got comments, it's all regions. This is a statewide map. And so we can pull up any area you'd like to comment on and do it, because we're probably going to go from here to clerks, to the public, and then the committee will make a choice. So now's the time to speak your piece. Pick your area. And
I'd like to go up in the Campbell County area if I could.
Yes, sir, you can. He's got it pulled up online now.
Is this the map we're gonna use as our most likely course of action?
We don't know. We haven't worked. At this point, we have two choices. We have the I-80 compromise and we have this map. It'll be one of the two will come out. Co-chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so that everyone's aware, the Campbell County Clerk is aware of the potential of this plan. I don't believe they have submitted, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Swank, but depending from multiple county clerks that I believe many of us have spoke with, if the 62 plan were to move forward today, we have told all the county clerks that this is a possibility and have certainly given them flexibility to work with their legislators to redraw those districts. So this is the map currently from what you see from an earlier plan submitted from Campbell County with minor modifications, except for the addition of Sheridan County School District 3 into that district. But certainly this would not be how the map at the 62 plan moves forward. This is not how it's not finality in any sense yet.
Senator McEwen, follow up.
Well, thank you for the answers. I'm just trying to wrap my mind around some of these maps, and they seem to have changed quite a bit and not quite a bit. And as we go forward, I think I'm just going to pay attention because I'm not sure which way the committee's leaning. So I don't have much to add this time, but thank you.
We're welcome to take direction from you on the committee for one, and we're all listening. So if you've got a preference or a thought, I'm happy to hear it.
I would like us not to expand the legislature. I think we're big enough already. I have some heartburn over, if I look at this map, we're kind of making Weston County whole. Is that correct?
It is.
And I'm trying to understand the importance of taking a county who has a population that supports 0.71 representatives and kind of slicing some other counties up who Campbell County could almost argue we need another representative, or we're at 4.9. So we're going to take 4.9 and get part of that away so 0.71 can be at 1. And I just can't wrap my mind around that. As we do it, we're going to underrepresent Campbell County and overrepresent Weston. And yet I'm going to go down to session and be beat about the head and shoulders with one man, one vote and deviations. I just see a big incongruent disconnect there. And I'm trying to understand it. And I'd like to support it, but at the end of the day, I think Campbell County is paying a price. And I don't think we should be. And really, that's my big comment for the day, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Your comments are appreciated. We're through that. I think we'll go. Do we have any clerks in the room that want to testify? Malcolm, welcome. This is the guy behind the curtain that's done a lot of work. I thank you very much for your work statewide, not just in your own region. So you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Malcolm Irvin, with the president of the County Clerks Association. The true man behind the curtain has honestly been Mr. Swank. The amount of work that he's put in and his communication with us, and he's changed the files that he shares with us. So we've asked for different formats. He shared those. That's the person that deserves any praise that's deserved. My plea is similar, and regardless of which plan this committee intends to go with, and if this committee is similar to what Representative Greer asked, if this committee does choose to sponsor a backup plan, our only ask is that we have the opportunity to make those fine adjustments. And I've heard that so many times from the committee, so I don't worry about it, but I'd be remiss if I didn't publicly put it out there. That's our request. We want to have that opportunity to clean up those lines and make sure we don't disenfranchise any voters in our counties. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Questions for Mr. Urban? Thank you for your
Thank you.
work. We have any other clerks in the audience? I don't see any. What? If you want to testify. Is Julie Freeze or is Julie like to? Oh, Representative Roscoe, we'll let you in and welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry, I'm a little out of line here, but I just wanted to express my opinion before it closes on the 6230 plan. I think it does solve a lot of problems that we've been talking about. Certainly not all of them. I don't think we'll ever get to that point. But I think I really like the fact that it does stay within deviation, which I think is sort of important for all of us. Let's see. I think the 62, the adding legislatures is allowed by the fact that we have increased our population a little bit, and that would work. So after all these this time, months of negotiating and every legislator having their own view on this, I think it does bring up the point that other states use it, that we could take, I just wanted to make this point that we could take this whole process out of the hand of some of the legislatures initially and hire an independent commission to do this, a bipartisan commission. They could do a lot of this work and it would still have to go through the legislature in the end. And so we would have the final say, but it would stop a lot of this smaller type arguments. Anyway, I do support this 6230 plan, and thank you, committee and Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. Ms. Freeze, would you like to weigh in? While we're waiting, Representative Kenner, would you like to testify real quick while we're waiting for Ms. Freeze to get on?
Certainly.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, committee. It's really nice to see all of you, and it will be even nicer to see all of you in a couple weeks in person. I'm looking forward to getting together and doing the people's work for Wyoming. I represent District 5, and I'm calling to just kind of weigh in as I was asked to by the committee chairman. We submitted our original plan and followed the principles that you all asked us to follow, and worked with our clerk and our elections folks. And we're really happy with the plan that we originally submitted, which really reduced all of these splits in the county. And with one exception, I think that maybe included about 17 people. And now, at the request of the chairman, we have submitted a plan for the 6231 possibility. This is not one that we would support, I don't believe, but have submitted it as a defensive move in case there would be what we might refer to here as a cram down. Listening to all the discussions I've heard about, we need to keep this county whole or that county whole. Well, we would submit to you, I guess, that we would also subscribe to that here in Sheridan County, that we would like to keep the people that we have represented for at least this last 10-year period in the District 3 area. We try to meet with those folks periodically as a whole delegation. Until COVID, we used to go out and have dinner with the school board and so on, and really tried to represent those those folks well, and we would certainly wonder about that if a split was made there. And so I guess personal comment now, not speaking for the whole delegation, is that I really don't think this is the time to increase the size of the government and increase the size of the legislature with just a marginal increase in the population for the state of Wyoming. And anyway, I guess the final comment might be that in visiting with the folks here, although I can't speak for them, I would doubt very seriously whether the two senators and the four representatives would be in support of the 6231 plan. I'd be happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Questions for Representative Kenner? Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Ms. Freeze online now. We do. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning. We can hear you well.
Okay. So when I'm presenting our 6231 plan, is that correct? I'm sorry, I had someone in my office.
It's being presented. We're actually talking about all the plans, but
Okay.
132 probably is where we're at right now for explanation. The other plan we've kind of worked through in the past.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, she's done some work and she could show you what they've done to accommodate this in Fremont County.
Perfect. We'll give her the floor and.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, if you look in at the Lander area, which is House District 54, could we zoom into that a little bit? So it used to be, it used to go to the east quite a bit, that district of 54. We had to shed 158, I believe it was. There's a small area down below that's got the Highway 28 and is now purple again. Back in 33, we had cleaned up that roadway to be in 34, or actually I think it had ended up in 54, but we have now put that back in 33 because we needed the numbers, and that's where they currently are voting for what district they had been voting in. So up in the Lander area, we took the Lyons Valley Road, which is east of Lander, and we went on the road all the way to the precinct line, and everyone who is on the west side of that will remain in 54, and those on the eastern side will now become 34. One thing we did, we had two options. This is the option that was chosen by our legislators. And the reason I think that we thought about this one the most was that there's a lot of farmer rancher families in the Lyons Valley area. So they do have a community of interest with some of the upper district number 34 people in that area. And Representative Larson was at this meeting and also felt, I mean, he hated to lose any of those folks as well, but he said it's not his district for him to totally discuss, and that whatever was best for Fremont County. And I agree with him that, however we can help, then that does keep Fremont County more whole than the 60/30 plan. So this is the one we're presenting to you.
Co-chairman. Representative Greer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm getting in the weeds a little bit. But Julie, there was a question about around Shoshone. Does the current boundary make sense with your precincts, or do we need to get with hands and make an adjustment?
That is the Shoshone Lysite precincts right there. They're complete.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
I didn't understand that comment. So yeah, they've always been full precincts that you have there.
So, Mr. Chairman, that's what I understood, is it basically followed the reservoir down the causeway and brought all that in. So I too did not understand the question. I just wanted to make sure we had it cleared up.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Co-chairman.
Thanks. Julie, can you talk about House District 33? Did the ratio of the one majority minority district we have, increase, any massive changes, fluctuations one way or another on that for the Native American representation in that district under a 62 plan?
So all of the numbers that I added in from that area down at the Rollins Junction area are all non-natives. So it changed slightly, but again, this is a current district. We were looking at 63% for the 33 district before, and I think this one is 62.8. I mean, it's close enough to 63. I don't think it adjusts it significantly. And like I said, this is currently part of that district.
Other questions for Ms. Freeze? Thank you. We appreciate all the hard work you've done, particularly with this
No problem.
minority district. We realize the extra effort, so appreciate it much.
No, thank you for the opportunity.
We have Ms. Fegler. I probably messed the name up, and I don't know her if she's in and would like to testify.
Yes.
Welcome, and please tell me how to do your name correctly so I don't keep beating you up.
Actually, this is County Clerk from Goshen County, Cindy Kenyon. Mary Fagler is my deputy, and she signed me up for this because I've been out of the office for several days and was sick.
Small, I recognize you, but I know your voice. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I think you all know that Goshen County has been split 4 ways in the past and twice been split 3 ways. And our population only demands one split, a whole seat and then some additional. And even with, I find it surprising, even with a map that adds additional legislators, that Goshen County is still split 3 ways. That just doesn't seem right. Our population doesn't demand that. And I have been through this process before, and I think everyone knows that there was some drama over the last split with Laramie County coming up and grabbing the prison in Goshen County. So I keep hoping that Goshen County will only be split as needed. I know that larger counties have more population and more density to absorb more issues than small counties do. Goshen County doesn't have a lot of options to solve other areas' issues, which I think is what Laramie County keeps doing, is they keep wanting more or a bigger share with Goshen just because of our location. But there's also Albany County that is available for them to share with, and being large population centers, they do share that interest. They share the interstate. And I suppose what I'd like to ask is that Goshen County just be split 2 ways. 4 ways and 3 ways and 3 ways is, I think, taking advantage of the voters here and diluting those rural voters' power of their voice. We have had great success sharing northwards with Niobrara County and Weston. In the past, we shared some House district with Platte, and that was successful. The one share that I can say has been unsuccessful is the share with Laramie County. When my staff was down there recently, one of the legislators from Laramie County asked, "Oh, well, where's that? You know, where's Torrington? We don't know where that is." And that was a little bit telling, was that people from Laramie County maybe don't share all the same interests and values and that we do here. And we have not had successful representation from the legislators assigned to the nip of a strip that goes up and grabs the prison. And in turn, I think that the people in the prison haven't had good representation. They are part of the city of Torrington. And I think that splitting them off like that just counts them as people that can't vote. Well, they deserve representation too. And keeping them part of the city of Torrington is important. Our representative from Weston County did a very good job of representing Niobrara and his portions of Goshen. But I would hope that the committee, even with adding legislators or whatever you decide to do, can find a way to only split Goshen County as needed and to not have us share with Laramie County and let us share to the north or with Platte where we are more comfortable. My office has attended every single meeting, mostly online because we have been having a lot of sickness move through our office lately, so it's hard to be anywhere in person. And we would really appreciate, and we've made a multitude of maps showing different ways that our county and our population split two ways can actually fit with the rest of the East Coast. So the county clerk from Platte has often said that he calls us the East Coast over here. So we've made maps to fit ourselves in a multitude of ways and only split us twice or split us three ways with Platte and Niobrara. So we would really appreciate you working on doing that. And at the end of this session, or of this meeting, we really hope that whatever comes out, we get a chance to look through the lines and fine tune the map, because what I'm looking at here tears straight through the middle of precincts. And something like that makes it hard to decide where people are going to vote because we don't have a lot of choices for federal elections and handicap accessible places. So I guess this is my one shot. And right now I have a lot of cold medicine in me and I apologize for rambling a little, but if you can find a way to please just split us two ways and have us share to the north, that would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions? Appreciate it very much. Okay. That's Representative Duncan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. County Clerk Kenyon, I just wanted to give a real shout out to her. Her office has gone above and beyond in every different reiteration of these maps. She and her office have immediately created a new version, whether they like it or not. They've gone in and they've made sure that whatever version that we've thrown at them, it works for the precincts and the splits. With a bad taste in their mouth, they've still created a map that actually works for our county. So they've gone above and beyond. And so I really want to make sure that people realize that they haven't supported the maps, but yet they've created them to make sure what's best for our county if that map got approved. So they've really done a huge load of work. And I promise that I'll keep fighting for a two-way split as long as I can and for the best of our county. But I really wanted to make sure everybody recognized how much work she did.
I'll second that. We have another clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, we're through the clerks, so we'll just start one at a time. I think let's go to anybody in what's up.
Going to break for 2 minutes?
Yeah, let's do a break. It's 10:19. Let's go till 10:30. 10:30. 10:30.
do public comment, I bet everybody jump on.
Okay, are we back going? Okay, public comment from the audience. We'll just keep on through with it. Anyone out here wish to come and testify on any of the plans? Come on up. Welcome. You have the floor.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The I-80 compromise plan and or Senator Scott's plans are both plans that do what we've been asking to have happen. It keeps Niobrara County as equal as really is practical. I guess my biggest concern I would like to bring up is surrounds the 6231 plan. And I just want to point out two things that it does. I've told this committee more than once now that I was worried about the Niobrara County being at a huge disadvantage if Weston County is kept whole. And this plan actually makes that situation worse. It puts Niobrara County just almost at a 3-to-1 disadvantage to Weston County. That makes things pretty difficult. But also, as I look at House District 10, it puts Goshen County in the same situation with Laramie County, just almost 3-to-1. And that seems like it's getting dangerously close to disenfranchising voters. It is it's a fairly big hurdle for a candidate out of those two counties to be able to be successful in an election. So with that, I would stand for questions.
Questions? Don't have any. I have just a quick comment, and it's not to be mean or anything else, but back to your ratios you're talking, when you split Weston County, that's where you put them as both halves are the 3-to-1 deal. So when you flip this, there's always someone that gets hurt. And by doing it the other way, you've done the same on both halves of them. So I'm not going to advocate either direction. I'm just pointing out that it doesn't matter what plan we do, there's some kind of wrongs that happen, and I feel bad about it. It's not fun. So thank you.
Yep. Well, and Mr. Chairman, I've said before, I do not envy any of you's job, and I know it's difficult. And as I've listened to Mr. Swank over here, if there was time for one more meeting, his hair would be about the color of mine, I'm afraid, by the time we got done.
It's about gone. It's receding.
But it is tough. And the thing it's been a great learning experience for me. I was kind of a meeting or two slow getting into this because we had done what the committee had asked in Region 7. And I thought that was all that we needed to do. And that was naive on my part. And I could see things starting to take a direction that I was not comfortable with. And that's why we started showing up. And but it is interesting, and I know for several of you that represent people in more than one county, you're going to be representing very likely people that have counties that have two very different opinions on how this thing ought to come out. And so as this thing goes on, I do not envy anyone's part of this, and you have my respect for the way you all have handled it.
I can tell you firsthand about it if you want to take.
I'm sure you can.
Kirk Weston and Campbell, if you want to talk about a big variance. So I have firsthand experience in a lot of it, because the truth is, very wealthy county, very different, a couple poor counties, and it's doable. I can tell you that. That's one thing I have faith in, regardless what our plan does and how it does. I can tell you from working with all the folks here and the people in our bodies, they aptly represent all of the state and all of their constituents well, regardless whether it's in a town, out of a town, or even in a different areas. I look across at Representative Greer, and I know for a fact that he works for some of the people in my area on legislative issues. They go to him before they go to me. And I do some down in your county that Hans and I always told him is shove me out of the way, but I've still got people that call me from down in your neck of the woods. And so, you know, we kind of take ownership of the whole thing. And I appreciate the passion and where we're at on it. And my apologies to the people I've made upset trying to find common ground on it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Ertman? I know you were coming, and whoever's next, we'll just keep lining up till we're out of people in here, and then we'll go online.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, you know where I stand. But I also believe in the 6231 in and of the fact that I'm not necessarily a proponent of bigger government, but I am a proponent of government that's closer to the people. And the more chance that an individual citizen has to get to a representative, even if it's not the one that's in their neighborhood, I think that's for the best. I do too also appreciate everything. I also appreciate everyone giving us the chance to have a voice in this too. I would like to gently push back on a comment that was made. Weston County has never asked for a representative. We've always known that we had to share it with someone. And when the Scott plan came up and there was 3 counties involved, we had 1 county that didn't want to share. So there we are. So thank you very much. I appreciate everything, and I'd stand for questions. Actually, I'll sit. I don't want to stand. Thank you very, very much.
Questions from Ms. Ertman? Thank you. I appreciate you. You've probably come to more meetings than about anybody. I appreciate your effort. So anyone else in the audience? Come on up. This is kind of come queue up and we'll work through. Welcome.
Good morning and thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Carla Gregorio, and this is the second time that I've testified. So I'm not as scared as I was the first time. So I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity. I am a Laramie County resident and a South Cheyenne advocate. At the last corporations meeting, they threw out months of work and a map that was respectful to Laramie County and South Cheyenne. They replaced it with a map drawn by rural legislators, in my belief, that decreased Cheyenne's overall representation in the legislature. I believe the I-80 compromise and now the Plan 3 are riddled with bias towards less populated, because I'm not going to use the word rural, parts of the state. Voting districts should also represent community of interest, like South Cheyenne. The previous map included 2 House seats and a Senate seat for the South Cheyenne. The I-80 map instead splits South Cheyenne up into 3 separate districts and lumps it together with Central Cheyenne and less populated Laramie County. It is my fear that the I-80 compromise and the Plan B maps are problematic and may lead to legal avenues. I believe, gotta use my notes, that this is just what I've been figuring out. I have a steep learning curve, but the I-80, I would say no, no, no. Basically because it was introduced December 14th. Everybody's talking about these maps that have been introduced. Well, the one from Laramie County and the one in September 25th, when we started working with this, was the map. But the I-80 was introduced December 14th. The reason I believe it should be no, there's 3 Senate districts outside of the deviation, all under the Bighorn Basin. Also, city districts, 22 House, 7 Senate, biased towards less population of the state. No, no to Plan B or 3, because this was introduced today, I believe. This first time I've heard about it. No districts out. The reason why no districts are out of deviation, however, the total amount of deviation from ideal districts size is significantly higher than the other two plans. 6231 is more equitable. City districts under this plan, there's 21 house, 5 house, none are in Laramie County. Urban more populations are poorly represented in the Centon map, especially. Yes, 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 if a close second is a 6231. No districts, I believe, are out of deviation. District size are closest to the ideal. City districts, 27 House, 9 Senate. Best for South Cheyenne, 2 House districts and possibly a Senate district. New ideas for 62 legislators are great. Fresh ideas, new experienced people bring also good ideas to the table. So I'm not real sure that we should always go with seniority is the best. Laramie County has 2 school districts that are split. We have Laramie County 1 school district and Laramie County 2. Those are the pushbacks that I heard from this morning's discussion. Since everybody's giving kudos, I'd like to give kudos to Laramie County individuals that have worked tirelessly on this redistricting. Thank you very much. And also this committee. So I want to thank you and thank you for some of the responses. I have written to most of you and several of you have responded. Again, my name is Carla Gregorio and I advocate for the 6231. It comes the closest to being equitable. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gregorio.
I
Any
stand for
questions?
questions.
Thank you for your effort and time. Come on up. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Kyle Cameron. I'd like to introduce myself as Al, and I really enjoy it when people refer to me as Al. I want to thank the committee for the work that you're doing around this. The point is, and I am going to look at my notes. Yes, the point is to draw lines on a map. We've heard that more than once. Your job is to draw lines on the map that provide access to voters to vote and access to voters to their representatives. It's not an easy job. I'm here today in support of 6231 and specifically the south side of Cheyenne. I was born in Laramie County. I was raised on the south side. I went to Goins, Johnson, graduated from Central. Unless you've been in Cheyenne, you may not know what that means. But for those of us who are Laramie County residents, we know what it means to grow up on the south side of Cheyenne. The point is to provide equal and fair representation. If you do that, Mr. Chair, if you do that, Representative Greer, we won't be mad. We'll know you did your job. And we'll know that we're going to get fair representation. Our population in Laramie County is growing. And with that growth, we do deserve representation. It is not a choice to increase the legislators. It is demanded. The south side of Cheyenne is growing. If you drive along College Drive, and you can do that on your way to either Interstate 85 or I-80 or I-25, you can drive by Laramie County Community College. That campus is growing. It's huge. And the housing around that campus is also growing by a lot more than 150 households. Today, I took my son to Triumph High School, and there's housing being built right there on College Drive by Triumph High School on the south side. It is an economically and socially thriving community. Their concerns on education, economy, the environment reflect the cares of the state, and their representation will reflect those cares as well. Mr. Chair, Representative Scott, I believe I heard Representative Scott say, let the local people decide their representation. I couldn't agree more. Mr. Chair, committee, whatever you decide, whatever map you finally choose, make sure it's one that you all agree on and that there's not a need to have another plan, a backup plan, a plan that's sitting in a drawer. The plan you bring to the whole is the plan the whole should agree on. I want to thank you for your time.
Good advice and words. Questions? Elle? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else in the audience? Welcome.
Oh, can you hear me? All righty. So good morning, Mr. Chair, committee. My name is Pastor Stephen D. Latham. I am a native of Wyoming and a resident of Laramie County. I've lived on the south side for the majority of my life. I don't live there any longer, but for the majority I've lived there. I'm the president of the local NAACP, and I'm also president of the Wyoming Independent Citizen Coalition, WIC, and we represent people to get equality. So today I want to say I'm here to support Plan 6231. None of the plans are flawless, but I believe that one represents the people the best. I know I haven't been to a lot of these meetings, but I have been kept abreast of what's been going on. Mrs. Gregorio is my vice president for WIC, and she has kept me up to date on what's been happening. And I felt today, because I do a whole lot of other stuff, I felt today I really needed to be here to voice my opinion. And I do think that plan will work the best because I know some of the representatives and the community have worked hard to come up with this plan. And I believe, like I said, none of them is flawless, but I believe that will best represent everybody. We do want a plan that makes sure that communities of interest are fairly represented. And I think that plan does that. And in particular, the South Cheyenne. Again, I'm like Elle. Elle and I went to Goins together. I have a long history here. That school, it's huge now. I don't even recognize it. But anyway, I went to Goins. I went to the old Johnson. I know I don't look as old as I am, but I went to the old Johnson and I went to Central. So I have a long history. I went to the University of Wyoming. And I just believe it's time now that we represent the people that need to be. One thing I did want to say is sometimes we don't have the proper time to vet things like we need to. But again, I feel this bill was there. But some people say we didn't have the time to vet it, but sometimes we just have to go with the flow and do the best that we can with the information we have. When I was in the military, you know, we had good plans. We had plans that were laid down, but things happened. So we had to adjust and overcome. And that's what I feel we need to do for this. So another thing is one thing that I feel that may help, because this is something that's dear to most of our hearts, is that maybe we should have an independent organization come in and do this and take it out of our hands because it won't be biased. And then bring it back to you guys because it's for you to decide the last thing to do it. And that way we won't have people that have ill feelings toward one another. And you know, we talk about being rural and urban. This is what most people, as I've traveled over this country and the world, it's what they would consider a rural state. But for me, I just consider it a state. And I think we're all one. Like I said, I've been here my whole life. And when I went to college, I met people who came from farms and out in the country, and we blended like one. In fact, I remember a lot of them, they knew more songs, more of the popular songs than I did. They knew more of the dances than I did. So, and they were out in the country and I was in the city. I was in Cheyenne. So they knew more. So I believe we're all one and we should work as one. We're not trying to hurt anybody's feelings or anything like that or take away from anybody. We're just trying to do it, I feel, is what's best for everyone. So again, I am in support of 6231. And I feel it will be the best for everyone. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Questions? Further testimony from the audience? Oh, Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It should be noted that the good Representative McGuire was very thoughtful and provided his fellow committee members some cinnamon roll treats for us this morning to help. He knows that sugar and coffee really go a long way with me. But notably for the Cheyenne residents, I just keep waiting and for my hot chili for lunch to go with my cinnamon roll. So which is a Cheyenne treat. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just remember sugar is good for you.
As long as it's beet sugar, we're good. Welcome, Commissioner Ellis.
Mr. Chairman and committee, can you hear me close enough so you can hear me? I have constituents too, and I have to get up here and speak for my constituents because I'm in the same boat you are in a sense. I get, as the chairman said, I get beat over the shoulders once in a while too. And so I'm going to say that I definitely echo what my clerk said, because I also have to go back and put in a lot of time with her. And so if I don't say what she agrees to, well, I'm in trouble. But I would like to see Goshen County not be split more than once, if that's possible. And I feel that, and here we go again, rural and urban, but Goshen County is the largest cattle producing county in the state. And it's also the largest farming county in the state. And they're a proud group of people, and they feel like they need their representation as close to home as they can, so that when somebody comes down here, they'll represent their agricultural interest as the best that we can in our county. And I understand what you guys going through. I'm glad I'm not sitting up there because it's long and hard, but I have to represent my people, and that, that's the way they feel. We would really like to keep our county to the north if we could, or our representation to the north if we could. And with that, I won't say anymore.
Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your comments on being here and all the hard work you've done. As a senator from Laramie County, I'm a bit surprised at this distinguishing feature of Goshen and the Laramie County piece. And so you pointed out some facts about Goshen County, and I just wanted to share with you that I think much maybe to the state's surprise is just how rural Laramie County is as well. And the amount of cattle production we have here, as well as ag producing area. And so here are some statistics. There are 999 farms in Laramie County. 219 of those farms are over 1,000 acres. So that allegation that we all are just these little ranchettes of 2 to 5 acres, which I live on one of those, but I don't farm. I'm trying to grow some raspberries, it's not going well. There are true farms in our county. Much of Laramie County is rural and looks exactly the same as Goshen County. They're related in reality, which might be part of this friction. I'm not sure. I haven't got my arms around that. I know Senator Case mentioned that no DNA shall mix, and I thought that ship sailed a long time ago. But there are about 220 farms with over 1,000 acres. Then there are about 400 farms that are between 50 and 500 acres. So some decent size operations going on in Laramie County. And I just think that there needs to be a little bit more consideration about how we contribute to the state in this way, that our rural and farming and Western roots are strong, hosting the largest outdoor rodeo in the world, that we really are preserving that Western heritage in a way that I think is being underappreciated here for redistricting. And I just want to share those. I'm hearing my colleague sigh. So I shall refrain my thoughts. I just want to share those with the public and the committee.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for those comments, and from a Goshen County perspective and from a cowboy perspective, which is what Goshen County is in most of the things. And we feel like that if we get a representative from way down in the southern part of Laramie County, that they're going to be more interested in what goes on in Cheyenne and around that part of the country than they are to come up like Hans did. Hans done a fabulous job of coming from the north to the south. And we just, that's just the feeling. And we'll live with what you do. There's no question about that. But we have an opinion, and that's what it is. That's just an opinion. But again, appreciate what you do and what you're doing and how hard it is. And I know it's tough sitting up there because we're all trying to look out for ourselves. And that's not, but whatever ends up best for the state of Wyoming is what we all need to look forward to. So that's.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments? Mr. Co-Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I do just want to say that Senator or Representative Duncan has provided some interesting concepts that there could be different configurations in this part of the state. And that I think we are all agreeable as if whichever plan goes forward, we certainly don't want to be seen sometimes in the press as oppressors from Laramie County trying to encroach on Goshen. It's really just our hope that we make this all work. And I look forward to working with you and our commissioners working together, trying to find the puzzle piece that works best for all of us in the next couple of weeks.
Senator Nethercott.
In the spirit of giving facts, Mr. Chairman, because they're helpful. The top 10 counties for cattle production in the state are 1, Goshen. Of course, you knew that. 2, Carbon. 3, wait for it, Laramie County. 4th might surprisingly be Fremont County. So the difference between Goshen and Laramie County, 115,000 head in Goshen County, 84,000 in Laramie County. Give or take 30,000 head. We're all in the same cattle production boat. So I just think that's another important fact as we walk through, just to kind of help bring in some of these similarities we have. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Clausen.
Mr. Chairman, in the spirit of good humor, I have 40 acres in my new hat and my new spurs, and I'm a cowboy too.
In the spirit of numbers, I contribute 1,000 head to Goshen County that you don't get, that you're counting mine out of Kirk County. Further comments? Come on up. Welcome. I have a long time no see.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I have sat through quite a few of these sessions and the words seem to repeat themselves as time goes on.
Got to identify yourself.
And I'm Jack Mueller. Thank you. I originally from Crook County, so I have a rural background. I'm a Wyoming cowboy fan, so that helps too on the cowboy part of it. But I live here in Cheyenne. I'm also representing not only myself as a private citizen, but the Laramie County Republican Central Committee on the whole aspect of redistricting of the legislature. I'd like to start out by saying I appreciate what you've been doing, and this sounds like a broken record because everybody who starts out says you guys have a bad job, a tough job to do. I think you could compare it to the mating of elephants. It takes place at a very high level, and it takes forever to find any results. And so with that in mind, I would go back to the basic premise as we start redistricting is one man, one vote. And I feel sometimes that you kind of get away from that as you get into your parochial politics of your local district, your local county. as I am, parochial for Laramie County. One of the things that has not been addressed up to now much is they talk about this precinct and we got to follow the precinct boundary and so on. That's very true, but there is a provision in the statute to change the precinct boundaries. So we're not bound by the number of precincts or the configuration of the current precincts. Laramie County, for example, has 61 precincts. I've worked elections. I've been early voting for years, one of the judges. I've been a judge in the precinct for various elections, and they change, and they should change, because the whole aspect of population growth and shifts also does that. I support the I-corridor provision because I think it best represents not only the entire state, but the southern part of the state, and including Laramie County. I am speaking in opposition, of course, to some of those who spoke earlier, but I think that overall it offers a better plan to allow Laramie County some representation, but also takes into consideration those population shifts that have unfortunately caused problems for 14 of our counties that lost population. We can talk about population growth and how exciting that is. You have to make a decision based on the current census. Yes, we can say, oh, there are 150 houses here, there's 800 new plots there, but you need to keep in mind what we have right now. I agree with the Goshen County people. Obviously, they don't want to be chopped up any more than they have been, and county after county has had to be chopped up in the past, and of course will be in the future. I don't see why Albany County can't be chopped up some, that is, to fit into the entire picture. Sure, Campbell County wants to stay whole. Sure, Laramie or Albany County wants to stay whole, but I think the I-80 corridor plan is more equitable in the long run, and I think it recognizes the population shifts that have taken place in the state. For that, I end my comments, and I would stand for questions. I would even sit for them.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else in the audience? Come on up.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'm Jeb Hansen, Niobrara County. Even though we're the smallest county in the state, the majority of our population in Niobrara County lives in town. They are urban. And the thing is, our urban population has its own specific needs and its own specific representation. And it's so important that they be represented. We're probably as sensitive of our urban population as any, because our town it's getting smaller and we need that town. It's very important to us. And the people that live in the town of Lusk need to be represented, and they're a long ways from any other. We're kind of like an island out there. So with that, thanks for the opportunity to talk, and I'd answer questions.
Thank you for coming down. We appreciate it, and we like the input. So questions, committee? Thank you. I go through your town every time I get a chance. It's my favorite route down, other than Lance Creek and Manville often. Welcome, Ms. Herman.
Morning, committee. Marguerite Herman here for the League of Women Voters of Wyoming, not Cheyenne. But so I'm not going to address the exact plan 32 and 6231, but more of a high level, and that's why I kind of like to go last here. First of all, great thanks to the LSO staff whose arduous work. I've heard things that you put a request to change things, and overnight they have the map redrawn. So I realize how much you depend and we depend on their hard work. So I wanted to shout out to them. And just to start out with, the question has been brought up to you by a legislator. Well, how does this darn thing work even? You don't have a playbook. What's going on? And, it seems that the question initially seemed naive, but actually it was a pretty intuitive question, I think, because how it works, there's a 10-year miracle, and 10 years between efforts, and the numbers shift in the state. I think they shifted a lot more 10 years ago. But a group of elected partisan people come together, no independent commission like other states, and make it work. But there are certain conditions that make it work. First of all, you have to get outside your own head a little bit and take a statewide view. It's always difficult. It requires you to look at your neighbors, to accommodate them, to give it. It's a give and take. And it's always painful. Every 10 years, I've watched this 3 times before. It is never easy. And you start out position, and there's a lot of accommodating, some grudgingly more than others. And instead of saying winners and losers, it just takes a whole statewide view. I know that there is a lot of talk about lines and where they're drawn and how they're drawn. And lines are important, but I think they are less important than the caliber of the people who are elected to seats. The commitment of whoever is elected to a seat, wherever the lines are, to represent everybody in that. And I know that there's a sense, well, we only have a piece of this district, so we're going to be overwhelmed. And I've heard that that's not just apocryphal, that's true, in which case the person representing has not done his or her job. It's not a fault of the lines, it's a fault of the character and the commitment of a person to represent a district. Now, I understand the difficulties in some, we're in Cheyenne, we're all compact, and it takes half an hour to get to the far reaches of a district, and it's a lot different in Carbon County. But I think when people run for office, when they put their name on the ballot, they're saying, I will visit everybody, I'll represent everybody in the district. And I want to touch on also another, I think, incorrect premise that has been stated over the past months, that if you have a diverse district, you cannot possibly represent that whole district. I disagree that if a person has even wildly diverse, diametrically opposed constituents, there is inherent in being elected the obligation to represent both of those. And in fact, difficult, yes, it's very easy if you have a homogeneous district, but the diversity, I think, also requires legislators to consider diverse viewpoints, diverse solutions to problems, to understand the problem of one vis-a-vis the other. And so I think rather than saying it's impossible, say it's a challenge, and say it may even produce some better outcomes, solutions in the legislature. So I just throw that out there. The diversity is not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes it's unavoidable. Maybe it's preferable not to have it, but it can be a gift to a legislator. And I've never been a legislator, so I'm probably stepping on toes here, but that's what appears to me. The benefit of the 6231 is that the divisor is bigger, so that the numbers get smaller. And I think that it does make it easier to come within compliance with the one man, one vote. So it does have that advantage. Where the lines are drawn, I'm not going to opine on that because I haven't really looked at the map. So, but I'm just talking in generalities that, and I think the league has always been since, Gorin versus Carpin in 1990, with the one man, one vote kind of trumps everything, that is the most important thing, without which, the government is not, that representation piece fails. So I appreciate the effort, the fact that makes it easier, then that's great. And that I appreciate your adherence to it and your fidelity to that. When other things have maybe, other interests have maybe risen to the top, you have stuck with that. And I want to say I appreciate that, because that is really the basis for equal representation, which is important. Anyway, I guess that's the extent of my comments. I'm not without making comments on each map. I would say that the League of Women Voters, we put our faith in the electorate, because after all, this is the consent of the governed, and the great experiment that the Revolutionary War brought us. And so it brings us to this point. And I think that the electorate, we have good people running for office. They will elect good people, and the job will get done, and our state will benefit. Without getting too grandiose here, I'm sorry about that. But anyway, if there are any questions, it's just some general concepts. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Herman. Any questions? Thank you. We have one. Representative Greer.
Since that was the first meeting I made in person, I'll burn a little time. I apologize. Just something in the back of my mind. I'm sure Representative Conley is still listening, but I've worked with Representative Conley on the issues of the gender wage gap and a few things. And one of the concerns that we always hear too is the lack of women in the legislature. And so when you start talking about having districts where you're actually traveling 2 hours, 90 minutes to serve a small group of constituents for that equal representation, how do you reconcile that as us as citizen legislators with this issue that we have, that we find it more and more difficult for females with all of their obligations that they take on willingly, and God bless them, to be able to serve?
Mr. Chairman. That is a great question, but it's a part of a larger question that does threaten the citizen nature of our legislature, that it's the time, it's the money. I mean, people have work obligations, family obligations. I was kind of hoping that the panel would come up with within a Senate district, maybe at large 2 House districts that would allow people, maybe 2 people to share duties to, and more flexibility. And I mean, you'd have to live in an area, but you could maybe share duties, and that would make it more possible. But that does, the rural sparse nature of our state presents challenges, and I will acknowledge that. It's a lot easier in a dense Cheyenne than it is in a very rural Carbon County. It is a problem, but it's part of a bigger problem. We've already established, I think, Chairman Swanitzer's committee came up with some figures that you guys take money out of your own pocket in order to serve. You spend money, you spend time away from jobs. That's the earnings you haven't made. So it's bigger even than what you mentioned, the demands of driving great distances. The alternative is to come up with a plan with 150 so that the districts then shrink down to a manageable size, but I'm not suggesting that. Here today, the desks would have to be like the kind you find in a high school classroom, with just a little armrest. So we're limited by the physical limitations, and I get that and appreciate that. Until we can shrink down the districts to a different size or come up with some supersonic way of moving around, I would have to say use of Zoom is a very pale second to showing up in person, but it can help. It can be used to make contact versus not making contact at all. And I would say people, legislators who simply can't get to a city, to one of their, communities, it's hard because it's hard to represent people you don't actually see face to face. But unless we can shrink down our districts, I just don't see a solution to that. And we are physically limited to do that. So it is a conundrum, but I grant you that it would be nice to see more diversity, not faulting anybody here or in the legislature now. It would be nice to see some more diverse faces in the legislature. But again, once you run for an office, you get elected, I think that argument kind of is in the past and now it goes forward. How can I represent every single person, every single interest? Even the tiny piece of a little county over here has to be on the table.
Thank you. Further questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience? Come on up. Hey, look at this. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Chairman of the committee. I guess I have a question, and it may have already been answered, but unlike everybody, I didn't tune into 100% of all of the proceedings. I'll be lucky if it was 45%. So hats off to everyone who showed up for all of them in whatever format. Representative Romero, House District 44. South and West Cheyenne, as the map is currently and will change. My question for whoever can answer it would be, where did the discussion end on a minority district for the Latin or Latino, Chicano, or Hispanic community?
I can answer. LSO did the research for us, and there was not enough numbers to justify. There's certainly identifiable numbers, but they're not in contiguous blocks enough to create a district, if I'm not mistaken, was the testimony we had. So it was definitely looked at, and it'll continue to be looked at as we go down the road in the future. But at this point in time, there's not numbers to justify a minority district.
Thank you, sir. And just a little side note, in addition to the conversation of this dialogue in regards to Goshen County, Albany County, and Laramie County, I actually may have, some of you may know, I actually grew up most of my life until I had to go to junior high school in Harriman, Wyoming, which is a rural community, or was. It is now a ghost town. That's a former Union Pacific Railroad town. So there was a ranch to my north, a ranch to my south, and it is true that I walked uphill both times to catch the school bus. And that's because we lived in a kind of risen area that went down through a valley and then went up to a cattle guard. So for all the cattle ranchers in Laramie County, and for all the people that have raised something or other, whether sheep or whatnot, like the McLaughlins used to do out there. So this might be tongue in cheek, so please laugh at it if you find it funny. I'm not trying to tell a joke, but if you want to extend District 44 out to Harriman and we can rebuild the Harriman community, I would be all for it. And they can be District 44 also. Just go down the highway, do a little cutout, go out west, straight down Harriman Road, include some of the ranches there. Okay, I'll stop.
I'll forewarn you, we have a little problem when we try to do little cutouts.
I noticed that, but to the discussion for Goshen, I also respect and am glad to have heard the opinion from members in that area. We've kind of had the same problem in Laramie County the entire time. So, and I think Albany probably the same. And just as a side note, the original cowboy was the vaquero. So he came out of South Mexico, and what became a sport used to be horse and other livestock management techniques. And I also wanted to comment that it wasn't just but in 2004 that we brought a 29-year PRCA rodeo guy to kind of try to help tell the history and the story of the vaquero to the group that has the largest outdoor rodeo in the world, and were unsuccessful. Fortunately, due to administrative changes and other controversial issues, he is now gone, and I think we're moving that forward. So hats off to that. I guess my main point, I wanted to make just a comment regards to South Cheyenne advocacy is the difference between it could be kind of ethereal. So I'm going to be brief. We have representation. Are we all represented based on the checkerboard? So basically, I guess if I have three nicknames, it's donut hole, half acre, and checkerboard. Okay, so I fall through every donut hole there's out there, and I've probably lived on every checkerboard. So railroad property, we call checkerboard, and in South Cheyenne, District 44 is now checkerboard. Side note for specific to District 44 is that what's being cut out in one of the plans, which is the entire west, what we refer to as the west side or West Cheyenne, that would checkerboard that out for a period of time. And I'm sure maybe this is entered into the record somewhere, was referred to by the Latino community as the Pozo. So everything south of the avenues, I think the good representative Duncan addressed that issue in our last legislature in one of her bills. I forget the number, but regarding where people can live. Well, nonetheless, you had a high Hispanic percentage. In Harriman, the folks that did work on the railroad, my dad, my cousin Nelson Trio, so Macario Romero and Blas Mendoza, and there was at least 4 Hispanics out there. So I know you can't cut that part out and include that to the Hispanic district. Same thing was true for the Garcias in Rollins, or in right up the block there in that it's a gas station now, right just before you hit not Rollins, but Buford, right up in that area. And then all the other railroad sections, and then the whites that lived next to us, they were full-blooded Navajo. So I know we're going to continue to work hard in these issues. I guess I'm going to continue to be the checkerboard. I just wanted to put those pieces of conversation in there as we move the ball forward. Aside from the Hispanic community, obviously, maybe it used to be 90% Hispanic, and now it's not. We have a lot of Anglo, Black, Asian, Native Americans. It's a quite diverse group. So whatever we do moving forward, I think we'll do it with patience. And I just wanted to end by encouraging continued conversation with neighboring districts so that we can probably know each other's issues a little bit more and realize that maybe we are more alike than we know, and wherever we're different, we'll continue to look at that. My final point is that when referring to the Latin people is tricky, because when you look at Census Bureau data and you look at ethnic group breakdowns, Hispanic always has those brackets next to it. It says white, right? You talk to a Chicano, they'll never go by that. So, and then you have the also other problem of marriage that is not the problem, but let's say Latina marries Irish man. Now she has the surname of the Irish man, but she's still a Latina. Anyways, I digress. Hats off to all you do, and make sure you eat well and take your vitamins, everyone. I digress.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. Anyone else in the crowd? Anyone else? Okay, we'll go online. I'm not sure who all we have, but we'll start letting people in. If anyone that's online listening, if you'll raise your hand, we'll bring you in one at a time. We'll wait a minute or two and give them a chance. Okay. I'm going to close public testimony. If somebody comes, we'll still take a comment from them, but we'll go to the committee.
I do have one now, Sabrina.
Okay. So we have Sabrina King.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I will be incredibly brief. My name is Sabrina King, and I am here today on behalf of the ACLU of Wyoming. 2 quick comments. The first regarding the one person, one vote and these 3 maps. We've heard a lot about this today. And we have not weighed in so far because previously much of the testimony has been that the basin has to be out of compliance and that is the only way to get the map to work. But I think what we have today, what you have in front of you is 2 other maps where every single district is in compliance. So I think at that point, the reasoning for keeping the basin out of compliance kind of goes out the window. So we would really encourage the committee to look deeply at that issue. And if you are looking for a map that will not land the state in court, I would suggest that the I-80 map should be off the table. I think the issue of keeping the basin out of compliance is sort of rendered moot with the other 2 maps that you have in front of you that actually put the entire state in compliance and preserve the one person, one vote. The only other comment that I would make is that as we have gone through this process, I have watched every single meeting, and that has even come up today that there are occasionally mentioned concerns of how a particular map, I think in this instance, it was the 6231 map, impacts sitting legislators. And I would just remind the committee and suggest that redistricting should not be done for sitting legislators. Those seats do not belong to the people who sit in them right now. They belong to the people. And if it is the case that the 6231 map or the Scott plan puts 2 current legislators into one district, then so be it. That's what happens with redistricting. And there are other considerations that I think are far more important. And so really appreciate all of the work of the committee. Would strongly encourage you to look at either the Scott plan or the 6231 plan in terms of compliance and in which map you should move forward to the legislative session. So other than that, happy to answer any questions, but just wanted to get those two things on the table before you start discussing. So appreciate the time and appreciate in particular all the work of LSO and Mr. Slink in particular. So thank you for your work.
Thank you, Ms. King. Any questions? Any questions? Thank you. Do we have any other hands up?
Senator Scott.
Senator Scott. Sorry.
Mr. Chairman, for Ms. King, you said the I-80 compromise plan was out of compliance. And I'm not questioning your word all. I just like to know where is it an aspect regarding the Bighorn Basin part of a plan? Is it an artifact in that plan they didn't quite work out properly? What would they have to do to fix it? Where is it?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Senator Scott. For my review, at least of the plans that are online, the I-80 compromise map does still have the basin out of compliance. So I think those 5 districts are at 6% or above. So that is the issue, and that would have to be fixed. And I, as far as I know, there is not another plan that has the so-called I-80 compromise and the basin in compliance. So the basin is the issue. And I think it's been shown with the other 2 maps that you can have a map where every single district is in compliance.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Follow up?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, following up on that, I think if we were to adopt the I-80 plan, it'd be an easy adjustment to get the basin back in compliance. And that would be something, if we were to adopt that plan, that'd be something we very much ought to do, because I do think we need to stay in compliance.
Thank you. Further comments, Ms. King? Or
no, Mr. Chairman, just that I would agree. I mean, I think the issue that I am speaking to is the basin being out of compliance. So regardless of what map moves forward, it's clear that that can be done and it should be done.
Thank you. Don't see any other hands up. So public testimony is closed. And
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
We do have Jen home with their hand raised.
Oh, absolutely. Let's let them in then. I didn't see that. I'm sorry. You have the floor. Welcome. Either you're muted or you can't hear us. You have the floor.
I can hear you, and I'm sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties here, but Chair Driscoll. Okay. Hi, Chair Driscoll and committee members. Thank you so much. My name is Jen Lowe. I'm Executive Director at the Quality State Policy Center. Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay? I feel like I'm kind of on a lag here.
Very good. We can hear you well.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and just start then. The 6231 plan seems to have quite a bit of momentum, and I have to. My first thought at the 6231 plan was that, I'm not excited about growing the size of government, and I would be curious to know the cost that it would accrue the state in incurring 3 new members over the cost of 10 years. That would be worth kind of noting how much it's going to cost the state. But I do think that the 6231 map meets most of the principles that this committee agreed on early on in the process and includes keeping all districts within compliance. I would like to touch on an issue that Representative Greer brought up, that, the way of life here in Wyoming is under attack. And I don't think that is the case. I think that in the 21st century, populations are shifting, that the jobs people want are in urban areas. And if we want to have a conversation about how to build up our rural communities and to make those more viable communities, then that's a conversation that we should be having separate from this. There are policies that can be enacted to encourage growth in rural areas and to encourage families to set up life there. Our rural communities have wonderful schools and a lot of amenities that families could benefit from. But those are two different conversations. Currently, population trajectories have the growth occurring in these more urban areas. And I don't think it's under attack. I think it's just the way the world is moving in this direction. Pleased to hear several commenters today supported Independent Citizen Redistricting Commission. I would like to point out that in the West, Wyoming had 2.3% population growth over the last 10 years, whereas our neighbors in Arizona, almost 12%, in Nevada, 15%, in Idaho, 17%, and in Utah, the most in the nation at 18%. And these states have all been able to approve a map for their legislative districts already. And these states also had to prepare congressional maps. So I do think that there are some issues that can be addressed in this state with an Independent Citizen Redistricting Commission. And I hope this is a topic that we continue to look at in the years ahead. I also want to touch on another topic that came up today, and that's gender representation at the state legislature. Wyoming has just over 15% women represented in the legislature, and that is not the worst in the nation, but it is close to the worst and just ahead of West Virginia. There are several factors that make it challenging for women to participate in the legislature. And again, this is an area that I would love to explore with the legislature if this is something that you're very interested in addressing. So that's it for now, and I'm welcome to take any questions. And again, there's this weird lag, so I apologize for that.
Thank you. Questions? Okay, do we have any hands up left? Or are we done? Okay, public testimonies closed. Committee, how would you like to proceed? I'm open to suggestions. We have, at this point, we just have two different versions. You want to bring one up first, second one up? What I had proposed was just a flat vote up or down on, we'd start on I-80 and then we'll move on to the 6132, and then we'll look if we're going to do whatever beyond that. So I'll entertain a motion on the I-80 corridor. But up or down, we'll just take a vote. What? Well, we're at a starting point.
And Mr. Chairman, just to be clear, I mean, there's still tweaking that has to be done. We don't have a bill yet. So if we choose between one of these, it would kind of go to final cleanup out in the field with the clerks.
The intent is to have one more meeting after this.
Bingo.
To clean it up, and then we have a final meeting right before session that we actually vote on the bill draft. So there will be tweaking yet to do. What we are not going to do is entertain any more plans that come in that are plans. If we easily could have a tweak that fit within, or a piece that falls within the realm. And that, as far as I'm concerned, is inbounds. It's no different than an amendment on the floor. But we're going to have a plan. When we walk out of here today, there will be a plan, and that will be the official committee plan. And we may have a backup depending on how we vote on Senator Scott's. So I'd entertain a motion on the I-80 corridor.
Mr. Chairman, I just want a point of clarification. Thought that is a committee plan as of now.
It is.
And so perhaps it'd be best, just a suggestion, to have somebody move the 6231 plan, and then that'd be the best way to proceed.
Okay, well, someone bring the motion. Chairman cannot. But that's fine. Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman.
What's that?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move the 6231 plan with the provision that we'll be able to go back to our communities. We can't change the hard boundaries, but we can go back, work within, the House districts that are within the regional boundaries that are set by that, in that we have a date set for those to be submitted. And the reason for that is I held off doing any work on it until I knew it would pass or fail here. So that would be my motion.
That's an order.
Second.
Second. Question called. Comment. Representative McGuire.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and this may be a clarification or it may be a friendly amendment, but just to make sure, so for example, between Converse County and Natrona County, there's still some tweaking with regard to the number that would be the number of constituents in either side of the number, or excuse me, either side of the boundary. And I just want to make sure that the intent of that, okay, it looks like the intent of that would be included in that tweaking. So thank you.
That's
Mr.
my
Chairman.
understanding. For clarification, that includes moving, as long as it can snap in and everybody's in agreement. We're not trying to force anything down to anybody. So if Niobrara, Weston, whatever, if they get together and can come up with something they agree on that's theirs and it fits the plan, it's doable. Senator Case.
And Mr. Chairman, for clarification, the 6231 plan, as we're discussing it right now, would it include the tweaks that Julie Freese presented to us this morning as part of the plan? I would assume that it would. I mean,
I believe
she's
so.
already did it. There may be more, but that's on the table right now.
Second finds that.
Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, or,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, you're still a chairman. That's-
Somewhere.
that's- so,
Yeah,
It's
so
been moved
Mr.
second. Any further discussion? Representative Duncan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a potential amendment and I just want to know, should I move that now before we vote on it or wait until this plan is passed?
I am open to the committee if you wanted to explain it.
Do you want me to
Potentially and bring
explain
at
it?
The next meeting would be my thought. We almost have to have maps, in my opinion, to actually do it. But if you want to conceptually talk
So
about it, so the
conceptually,
committee
thank you,
knows that it's
Mr.
out there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So conceptually, my idea of the amendment would be to do a status quo. So we would split Weston and do the status quo of Goshen to be split in two and down the strip. So we'd end up being more of a status quo of what we are right now. And it would fix some of the issues.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Representative Greer.
Yeah, respect and understand Representative Duncan's position. No matter what we do, there are going to still be 1 to 2 points of severe conflict that'll be fleshed out through the whole process. I think the best this committee could do is try to limit that to about 1 or 2 points of conflict. My thoughts, for what it's worth, is vote this up or down. That tells us what direction then we need to go. And then Representative Duncan has her job to do representing her area, and I understand that and respect that. But just try to bring a little clarity and a little linear path forward for this committee and the legislature.
Thank you, Representative Greer. That's kind of where I was at. I think
Agreed.
it's in order for her to bring a map to the next meeting to look at. but
Agreed.
Let's get a plan. And I admonish the committee to support and work within the plan from this point going forward. Up to
Perfect.
this point, we've allowed all kinds of new plans to come in and move. We're going to stay with one plan, however it goes. So with that, any more comments? Okay. All in favor?
Voice vote or anything? Or just one hand?
If
you're doing hand, you need to take the screen off so you can.
Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What?
Roscoe online. Oh, you can't see it, but.
Can't see it.
It's on
So
there.
11, I think clearly there's enough there. So that's the plan going forward.
Mr. Chairman, because it's relevant on how many senators voted for it, how did you vote?
I was yes.
Okay.
So we had, I believe, Nethercott, myself, and Case voted yes. So we did have the votes. What's that?
Senator Bonner was a no.
Right. He was a no and Senator Scott was a no. I knew for sure, Scott, I talked to him ahead. So with that being said, any further business comments on the plans? We are open, back to what Representative Duncan did. If you want to go back to your regions and work on things that fit this, I have no heartburn about it. And particularly if they're vetted in the community so that the community understands what's happening. They're not an individual plan. So with that, I think we're down to trying to pick a date for this next meeting. And if you're going to have amendments, I'd like for us as a committee to decide how much ahead of time they need to be there so the public can see them. So do we want to just send a poll out and do it off, or do we want to try to do it right now?
On what our next meeting is, or?
Yeah,
We only got 2 weeks. We better.
it's pretty tight.
Yeah.
That's,
End of next week. February 1st. How many? So,
Mr. Chairman, from what I understand, at least 2 clerks have obligations or vacation plans next week. And so in discussing with them, I don't believe primarily one county will have perhaps a submission until like the week of the 7th. We can certainly ask for that earlier. I know that's the week before legislature. If we want to have 2 meetings, that does make it tight, but I just want to make sure all the clerks who, just got another curveball thrown at a couple of them have time to
I
vet
would
those plans.
also suggest the next meeting could easily be a Zoom meeting. Yeah, it is unless someone's got complaints on it, because we're getting into travel times and schedules. Senator Case.
Mr. Chairman, so if we had a meeting early in the week of the 7th, an in-person meeting, and maybe it would be the 7th, we would still have an option for having a meeting, a Zoom meeting at the end of the week. We actually have an option of having a meeting like Monday or so. And it's awkward, but if all there is one little thing, so that's a possibility too. That'd be the Monday of legislature.
Mr. Chairman,
Representative Greer.
I will not be able to attend a meeting in any form on the 7th and 8th.
And Mr. Chairman, all legislators have I guess it's a mandatory meeting at 4 o'clock on Tuesday the 8th. So I don't know if earlier that day would be agreeable if we've already cleared our schedules for that.
8th.
Tuesday the 8th.
Mr. Chairman, Management Council meets on the morning of the 8th.
Excuse me?
Management Council's meeting is the morning of the 8th.
It is.
And then in person.
Yeah, the meeting's in next week. in case there's some-
What about the night?
You might have some plans coming up by next.
9th, anybody?
Works?
So
Boy, that's
absent
good.
objection to the 9th, Representative Greer. Blackburn.
Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman,
works.
I
I
just
can
think,
do a Zoom meeting on the 9th, Mr. Chairman.
Did you have a question?
I'm at the dentist.
Representative Duncan White.
I'm at the dentist
You can have your
Okay.
phone, we can look up your nose.
and I've been postponed it like 3
Speak.
times now. I can move it, but,
There's no time.
oh, no, never mind. I changed it. That's right.
Okay, so we're looking at a meeting on the 9th.
Mr.
And that
Chairman.
meeting, absent objection, for anybody that
Mr.
wants to
Chairman.
zoom in. Go ahead.
if we wait too late, we're not going to be able to shuffle and get, if we have a problem on the 9th, I don't think it's going to give us enough time to do whatever we might need to do to clean it up. I'm really suggesting that we do something the week of the 31st to the 4th to start with, and then we can worry about the 9th, 10th.
February 3rd.
We have, excuse me?
We're gonna check in that or on.
Oh, either the first or the second, that's for me.
Pick a date. Second of February works. I'll make it work.
Seconds.
It's Groundhog Day.
Mike, does that work for you?
Second,
Well,
Representative Greer.
Yeah, I'm just curious about how much I even get done on looking at the Bighorn plan within it by then. But the other thing too, we need to be aware of is the 2nd is Groundhog Day.
Seems fitting.
That'll give us a lot more time to redo.
The third is,
Mr. Chairman,
third gives us a full week.
Well, I'm game with whatever the committee wants.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Scott,
Mr. Chairman, why don't we do just one meeting and do it on the 11th?
Yeah.
there's some. I have no problem with that. That's,
The fact is I'm gonna have to travel down here for session. I made an obligation to be here. So if I come down a day early, what's it matter?
so the 11th, is what we're talking then? I agree with you, Senator Scott. I think one last meeting is fine. Does that give LSO time, Michael, to get a bill drafted if we work as late as the 11th? Are you gonna have time to draft a bill up? For John?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, yeah, I'll get a draft out relatively soon. The only thing that will change is if nesting changes in the Senate. Otherwise, the bill will be the same. Either way, it'll just be the attachment A will change as long as the nesting doesn't change. So we can definitely get a bill ready by then, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask something? And this would be a little out of the ordinary, but Hans and I will work on the Bighorn Basin plan within this framework. We got some adjustments we would like to do to clean up some boundaries. We'll share that with the other legislators, and you have my word on that. Could I present that map that wouldn't change it or affect anybody else to this committee and have the committee just vote on it by email? So that it can be, because we're not going to change anything that anyone else cares about except for us in the
I
basin.
am happy on that, on anybody doing that, because the email vote's simple, and if they don't like it, they don't like it. But if the committee will indulge us, I'm for that. Representative Duncan.
Mr. Chairman, would it be preferable if my amendment ended up being a floor amendment versus a committee amendment?
Anything we do.
I mean, because
My advice on that would be if you can get it through the committee, you're better. It's got a better chance to stand up than the floor debate. I'm happy to go either way you want, but my experience in legislature has been,
I just don't know the procedure when we get to that point.
I would get your plan. We're talking about an email vote, is put your plan together, do
Okay.
your homework. And if the committee's okay with that, we'll set a
Submit it
time
to
frame and
everybody.
you'll vote by email, and then they'll just snap it in. That last
Perfect.
meeting will merely be to affirm.
Okay.
So
Let's, I want to raise a note of caution, Mr. Chairman. So if we're going to make major changes to this plan by email votes, I'm not sure how that public is included and all that thing happens.
point.
It's okay to say basin, outside boundaries, snap it in. This is a little bit more than a snap it in kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I would suggest that we prepare a real discussion and amendment on this type of change and go through the process.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
no problem. Have it ready to bring to the meeting. We'll do the minor by a vote if we need to, and yours will come at the meeting on the.
My thought is if we make little boundary adjustments in the basin, you guys, nobody's gonna care, except for the basin. And
I encourage
and all
you to
that does is just administratively speeds us up. But when we start talking about larger policy decisions, as Senator Case said, we probably better step away from that.
So let's ask any of these amendments that are brought on the 11th that they're there. That is what day of the week is the 11th? It's a Friday. Let's ask that they're in by Tuesday of that week so that the public we can get them on the website and they can look at them, because this is going to be the last shot for the public to know what's happening. So, and yes. Senator Scott.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if we decided not to do the email vote, because I would sure express opposition to that. Frankly, I've been unable often to understand what's proposed just looking at the email, and I would probably be forced to vote no on all of them.
That's where we've come to, Senator Scott, other than the minor adjustments within their own areas, which I don't think anybody on the committee wants to force their will on the basin or anywhere else. If you if you're doing it locally in your deal, if Natrona County's doing a plan internally, I certainly am not going to debate what you folks do inside your area. So the only way I'm voting no is if you're doing something that's totally out of line, but so. Representative Clausen.
With the new Converse Natrona split, we'll have quite a little work and need a whole bunch of, we quite possibly might need a whole bunch of latitude. As long as we keep the populations within deviation and inside of the county lines, is that if there could be quite a little local
Very
contingent.
acceptable to me. As long as it works on the map, we're very open. Yes.
And of course,
It does not affect any adjacent districts or counties.
You can't, because if you do, then the whole map moves. That's the problem we've been having is you push the ball here and it
Right.
bulges over here. So
So if it's internal and no effect on adjacent districts or counties.
Mr. Chairman, we'll have to have it'll have an effect on Natrona County, whatever we do, but that's where we'll have to have a little slack in that.
you have it. Okay. I
Mr.
think we're
Chairman,
set on the 11th then.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Recognized, Mr. Buck. Representative Blackburn.
Watch out, Senator. So do we know for sure if we have required classes or something that we need to go to on the 11th? From the LSO through Anthony Sarah, or can you get us a pass so we don't have to go to a required?
I'm not going to publicly state anything. If there's conflict, we'll figure it. I don't anticipate that meeting being a long meeting on the 11th. So I never know.
Yeah.
That's why. Okay, with that, any other business? Mr. Slank.
Mr. Chairman, just for clarification. So my understanding of the conversation is that there will be a meeting on the 11th to amend whatever needs to be amended within the current plan that was voted on.
Cleanups.
That submissions should be to LSO by the 8th, February 8th, correct? So that we can get them posted ahead of the meeting. Will there be any email ballots on any revisions?
We could have one on Representative Greer's potentially, but it's probably just easy to bring it to 11.
So I guess what I would say is you're the chairman of this committee, the two of you. If you see that and don't have any problems, any controversy, be up to you to say, hey, committee, here's what the basin did. Why don't we go ahead and do this and get it put into the plan?
Right.
Just leave it at your discretion. Okay. That's what you guys get paid the extra $5 for.
When does it
Don't you?
come? When does it come?
Maybe I do is just speaker pro tem.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Further comments or business committee?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, did you decide not to make the other plan a committee backup? It doesn't make much difference.
No, I think we need a motion on that. That's a good point. To turn the Senator Scott plan into a backup that's just there. Seconded by Clausen. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
Everybody in favor, raise your hand, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Scott is 9. Roscoe is 10. It is passed. So the Scott plan will be labeled as a backup plan and will be a committee backup bill. Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I heard some public comment resisting in criticism of the committee considering an alternative plan. And I would just state that that is not a reflection of the committee's lack of consensus concerning the first plan that we passed, the 6231 plan. Rather, it reflects maybe some wisdom of the legislators who voted in favor of that alternate plan and understanding how things can go in a very dynamic session. So Senator Scott being the one who possesses the great amount of wisdom on that subject, notably Senator Case, who's second on that front, objected, but then the majority voted. So I would just say, just kind of understand those variables that I am taking into consideration, and I think others who voted in favor of that, when it comes to understanding the role of that alternate plan.
Representative Yan.
Mr. Chairman, just a process question. If that's going to be sponsorship of a bill, will we take a roll call vote for that the next meeting?
We will.
Okay.
We have to. Mr. Swank.
Just to clarify for LSO, will there be any entertainment of amendments to that plan prior to the next meeting?
I would say yes.
Okay.
How do you feel about that, Mr. Swink?
Committee, any further business? Senator Nethercott.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Mr. Swink. I think it is helpful for all the committee to be aware of any concerns that you might have or requests to us about requests of you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm indifferent on the request. My concern was whether the plan voted on the committee for the backup needs to be amended for any particular community. I do know that it has not been provided, geographic files have not been provided for that plan to any community as yet. I do have one request from one community to do so. So that was the genesis of my question.
Okay, I think we're all done. Committee, we're adjourned. Thank everybody on the committee. We've been down a long path. Today was a reasonable day, and I think we're well on the road. And once again, a huge round of applause for LSO staff, because we have really put you to the task.